calling to order the special meeting of the Town Council, February 13th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I see Denise is here. I just wanted to tell you guys how I organized this today. And I also set up the meeting for Tuesday. Also, I did an agenda. But the meeting today was I wanted Denise to go over the fund balance. And in certain accounts we have talked about over the last couple of weeks. And then I brought together all the people that have some kind of municipal capital request. So but also in addition to talking about their municipal capital, we'll review their budget also. So if you remember, it's Parks and Rec, Harbormaster, and Harbor and Coastal Management. And then at that point, we should have discussed all of the capital. And I would like to make some decisions on the municipal capital today. I did put the town council and the legal services on there. If we don't get to it, that's fine. But I'd like to talk, oh, Mike's with us. I'd like to talk about the town council's budget and the contingency fund. So Denise is here.
I'm here. Good morning.
Morning.
So Denise and I had a discussion last night. So I do know a lot of what she's going to say, but I want her to share this with you. There was questions about the different capital funds we have and what's in there. Keep in mind, we have two capital reserve funds. We have the casino capital reserve and the other capital reserve fund. So Denise, you want to go through what's in those accounts?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
And so what I sent to Denise, and I don't know if she shared it with all of you or if you have something to go by, but I summarized the four main restricted accounts that we have been attempting to fund the last few years through resolutions at the FTR. That would be paving, the reval, the election account, and the capital account. The capital account is one of the newer ones that we started funding a couple of years ago with a percentage of unexpended funds at the end of the year. So right now, paving is 186,000, sorry. The reval is this is as of 6/30. This is as of the audit, because that is the time frame after we shake everything out and all of the accounting entries are made and the books are pretty much closed. It's at that point that we calculate the reserve numbers based on whatever FTR resolutions were approved. So these numbers are as of 6/30. If there's been any spending to those accounts, you'll see that in the expense reports through the end of the year. And those are the reports that I provide you on a monthly basis. So starting from the top again, paving is 186,000, reval is 218,000, the election account is almost 39,000, and the capital is 514,000 for a total of $958,000. So those are all restricted accounts that show up on your expense reports on a monthly basis, those line items, and you will see the carry forward in the second column of your expense reports, and they are treated and reported to you on a monthly basis. That's also a large part of what you see when the financial statements are going to be presented on the balance sheet. You'll see where we are in terms of our general fund balance. So our total general fund balance as of June 30th, 2020 was $4.987 million. Now, in that fund balance is that $958,000 that I just described to you, plus any prepaid accounts that we have on the balance sheet, which is typically the HSA accounts that we prepay for the employees, plus any other deposits or prepaid insurance that we have to make by a certain due date. The rest of it is what you would consider the unassigned general fund balance, and that's the number that everybody always kind of focuses in on, because that, gives you a little bit of funds to use if you have to balance the budget. So if you take that 4.987 million and you back out the committed 958 and you back out the non-spendable prepaids of 100, you have an unassigned fund balance of $3.921 million.
And
Then
so
the
Denise,
question,
yeah, well, you're probably going to say exactly what I just said. The question is, how much is that over
Right.
the 3%?
right. So then we take 3% of the current fiscal year's budget that we're operating in, which is $53 million. And that is the charter minimum requirement. So 3% of your unassigned general fund balance is 1.6 million. So like Denise said, that's the question that always comes up. How much is in the unreserved general fund that is available over the charter requirement? And that would be $2.3 million.
Mike?
Denise, what is best practice in terms of what we keep set aside for that?
If you were to compare us to other communities, we are on the very low end of a reserve like that. I know, and the league hasn't done it in a few years, but the last time that they did a comparison with all of the communities, we were probably in the bottom 10 of the communities in Rhode Island in terms of our fund balance compared to our revenues and our expenses.
Thank you.
So the 3.9 million is what percentage of?
Oh, you'd have to ask me that.
Yeah, I know. I asked you that. I know. I should have
Hang on.
prepared you for that.
Hang on, it's not in here in front of me.
I could probably figure it out.
It'd be like 6.5%.
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're right. Just multiply it by 2 because a little bit more than
That's
that.
what I was
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. Yeah, okay. So right now we're at 6.5%. Of course, last year we took from this because of our financial problems. But I think we did pretty well considering.
So that was my first question. Do we take of that unassigned general fund, is there any of it that has been allocated for FY 2021?
Hang on, it's in here.
I would imagine that.
I'm switching screens. That would be on your revenue report. And we have
I'm trying to find it on the revenue, but
1.674 million.
That's what we use for this year?
Yes.
So
Does that come out of the 3.921?
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, if we were to use the 1.674.
So that's the issue, whether or not we're going to use it. It's there,
Right.
It's available, and this is what happened last year when we closed the year out. As much as we were panicking that we were not going to make it because of the gaming, we made up some issues with some unexpected revenues. And because we saved so much money in different budgetary accounts, we did not have to dig into the allocation that we had set aside from the general fund to run the budget.
So pre-COVID, we had 3 pretty decent revenue accounts that we were not expecting, or budgeted, which
Correct.
would have been the capital reimbursement for the school project.
Right.
RIDE made up what they shorted us in 2019 for school housing aid, and then closing out the bond, we recognized about $150,000 in interest income
Right.
on that activity. So those were over $1 million right there. And then you saved, or the town saved, 1.8 million in unexpended funds
That's right.
as soon as the pandemic hit and placed the spending freeze.
Right.
So put those two things together, and we didn't need to dip in.
Right. So that preserved the monies that were initially anticipated. So
Yes.
the same thing could happen this year. We might not use all 1.6 million,
Right.
but you do have to leave that as a potential issue against the 3.9 million.
Right. And unfortunately, you can do as much analysis as possible to tell you, well, where are we right now? Well, right now we are on track, but who knows what could happen between now and the end of the year that would affect our or make it necessary to actually use some of those funds.
Right. All right.
Like you need to have a crystal ball.
No, I get it. So I just wanted, all I'm trying to emphasize is that
Right.
3.921 is really, while it's unassigned, there is a piece of it that is assigned to FY 2021. It's whether or not we actually utilize it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't leave 2.3 million clear and available to expend for FY 22 until we're done with FY 2021.
No, it leaves about 66,000 if you really look at it, if we used all of it.
No, I get, yeah, that's so, but we will, we're not as, let me put it bluntly, that we're not freezing expenditures as severely as we did last year, but we are being extremely cautious about how we're spending money this year. So we may not have to dip into, we may dip into some of that 1.6 million, but hopefully we don't have to dip into all of it. So that, we're trying to do the same thing this year as what we did last year, but not as severe. Obviously, because we don't have any capital anyhow to expend this year. We deferred all that as well. So, it's like kicking that can down the road 2 years. So we do have some of these needs that you're looking at for capital wise are pretty significant needs. But it's, through good management, your department heads have been very good about trying to, they ask, but, they really have to justify it to make it before we'll expend it. The last thing we want to do is
Laura,
have to go back to the taxpayers.
hang on 1 second.
No problem.
Go ahead.
So the bus only.
Wait a minute, I think we're listening to Mike here. All right.
He just muted.
Yeah, I know. All right, so just keep that in mind also, that we really don't know what's available in the general fund right now. We can estimate we have something in there, but we don't know what. But what I find is interesting is the 514 that we have in capital funds, and I'll refer to that later, but I have an idea about that.
Okay.
All right, Denise, go on. So we were also had questions about the infrastructure account.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's 3 other restricted accounts that don't necessarily show up on your operating expenses, and those are accounts that are funded outside of the appropriations. So we have the industrial park infrastructure account, which had been on the books for a very long time, but just was sitting there. And a few years ago, I think when they first sold Longplex his lot, the council decided to reserve some of the proceeds of the sale so that you would have funds available as the park grew or as you sold lots to do the necessary infrastructure. So you wouldn't be, taxing the people every time you needed to do something at the industrial park. Sadly, there was only a couple of other lots sold. And 1 year, the resolution was not adopted to set aside the funds. That was when Jim Long bought his second piece of property. So that did not go in there. Then there was a lot sold. I want to say the storage was $185,000. I do remember that.
Yep.
And the council voted, at that time, the resolution was a minimum of 25%, but the council could vote for more than 25. So they put in 50. So between what was already there from years ago and what was added over the last couple of years, and they have spent some of those funds to do some paving that was worked out between the town and Longplex. There's $366,300 there available for industrial park infrastructure.
Denise, can you repeat that number?
Sure, 366,300.
Thank you.
That number only changes at this point if there is a resolution or an agreement to set aside any funds from the sale of a lot. So that number will not change or grow unless you take action. There also is an account on the books that I discussed with Denise last night. It has been there before me. I have always been advised that it was to be used for any necessary paving or top coat to Progress Way. And there's $90,000 there. But I have yet to be able to find anything that definitively says this is what it's for and this is who, proposes to use it.
So I would suspect that goes back to the power plant.
Possibly.
Because they built the road originally, and it may be monies that was set aside from their bond to put a top coat on, because there has never been a top coat put on that road.
That was
Right.
that was what I had always heard, a top coat. A top coat. So there's
So I know
that.
that Rick is listening. And you probably didn't even know that this fund existed, but it needs to be spent if we do need a top coat, because it's there. And I know we talk about this a lot, that we need top coats on these roads. Well, I've been on the council for 10 years and I didn't even know that this existed. So this may be something that, Rick, you may want to look into, because I think we should use this money, because I know we do need top coats.
And the last fund that was recently established is the Casino Gaming Fund. And as of January 31st, there's $552,420 in that fund.
And that fund we're going to talk about on March 8th with the resolution on the agenda.
Okay.
Not the resolution, the ordinance, I'm sorry.
Right.
Some people want a resolution, but the ordinance is on the agenda.
Okay.
That is the total recap of any funds that are available, restricted. We have, and Rick might be able to tell you better, I don't know the exact amount, but there's a couple of $1,000s in the recycling fund that was left over from resource recovery when they used to pay the towns a percentage of their net income and net revenue from recycling, but that hasn't happened in a long time.
That still has a specific purpose, correct?
It has to be used for recycling efforts.
Okay.
Now, recycling efforts, could that be used for our recycling center?
I don't see why not. There's $5,000 in it.
Well, I know, but every little bit counts, right?
I know. And I'm happy to get it off the books.
Like every little bit counts, and that I was thinking about that when I was looking at it, that could be right, get it off the accounts and put it towards the recycling center.
Yes. Some of those funds were used to draw up the plan.
Yes, I know. So I think we should move that into the recycling center in the future,
Okay.
probably this year.
Happy to.
But we'll vote on that eventually. Now, the Capital Casino account, that 542, that is what we got last year from the casino?
No, that is what you've been accruing since July 1.
Okay. Since July 1?
Since
Yeah.
July 1 of 2020,
That's the money that's coming this year.
this
Correct.
fiscal year.
Correct. Okay.
So that's like 20,000 a week.
Well, we get a weekly take on table games, which is roughly, varies, but $3,000 to $5,000. And then we get the quarterly payment, which is several $100,000.
So if you figure we're already 8 months into this, and that's all that we've gotten, correct?
Yes.
So it's nowhere near the 3 million that we anticipated.
No.
Okay.
It never was going to make it anyway.
Yeah, I know. I know. Any other questions about all these accounts?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, I would just like what Denise has stated on a piece of paper so that I have it right.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't think I have that, Denise.
I sent it to you last night.
All right, well, let me look.
I sent it to Mike as well.
It's the one pager?
Yes. You got it.
Yeah, I got it from somebody, I think directly from Denise.
I sent it to the president and the vice president. I wasn't sure if I should be I wasn't sure who to send it to.
Yeah, because
I'm happy to send whatever needs to go out.
Do you have everybody's email with you right now?
If you just send it to me, Denise, I'll distribute to the entire council and the clerk.
I did. I sent it
okay.
to you this morning.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy,
So
could
yeah,
you- could
I'll
you
email it
include
to
the-
you then.
I'm sorry, could you include the budget committee too? I mean,
They had asked for something last week. They got something similar, but sure.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, I have all the figure. I still can't find what you sent me, but I will eventually.
It was at, it was
Did you
around
send it
8:30
to my
this morning.
private email, or did you send it to?
I sent it to GL38.
Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah, it was
I
around,
thought that was the one
8:30
we,
this morning.
okay.
Okay. No, it's not a problem, Denise. It's just not the one I'm looking at.
No, so, I'm sorry, about 7 o'clock last night it was.
Yeah, it isn't the one I'm looking at. That's what it is. But I do have the numbers. So if Chris, you could send that all to everybody now.
I am. I'm just hang on a second.
I think for this discussion today, the most important accounts are the capital fund, which is for 514. And then I also think the infrastructure needs, we're going to discuss that. Oh, and there's one other thing. So there's been a lot of talk about the detail account. So when the police go and do details, we get, the easiest way to put it is we get a percentage for vehicle maintenance or for almost renting the car for these details. Now, I talked about how we did take from that a couple of years ago. It was under Chief Blakey, and he bought cars with that. But Denise has explained to me how that has changed. And would you like to explain to everybody how that's changed?
Well, years ago, and Chief Blakey was able to do it, the money was being recorded as a reimbursement to vehicle maintenance. And, he knew it and they were keeping track of it. But this was also at the time that we were doing the Sakonnet River Bridge. So there was a lot of detail and there was a lot of funds available. So it was something that that he was paying very close attention to. Since then, there has been questions about whether or not that should be fee revenue versus vehicle maintenance reimbursement. Technically, in the accounting world, when we are reimbursed for something that we are expending, if it's in the same fiscal year or the same calendar year, efforts are made to make sure you match your expenses to your reimbursement. So that's why I always have to look at the time frames of when the expenses are made and the reimbursements are received. Question came up a couple of years ago with the budget committee. They wanted to, they felt as though it should be included as part of the detail revenue. And it ended up being budgeted that way. At some point when Chief Jones had that opportunity to do the grant with the senior center bus and get vehicles for the police department, we had to leverage some kind of contribution from the town to secure that grant. And we used funds from the vehicle maintenance, which was directly received from the vendors for the detail rental of the cars. And we leveraged that with the grant. That put an end to using those funds for anything other than revenue. Right now, they go into the general fund as detail revenue. I can tell you this, that I don't know, perhaps it's pandemic related, but the details are not near what they used to be. And when the budget committee wanted to put the detail vehicle revenue into the fee structure, at that time, we were under the impression that the casino was going to be paying us back for vehicle rental. But then that did not happen. I think when they realized how costly it was going to be for them to have a vehicle and be paying for a vehicle at the casino for the police details. So they came up with some other arrangement.
Okay.
A little
So,
convoluted, I know.
no, well, I think the bottom line is we cannot use that money for the cause. But like I had said in the past, if he does get a grant, Chris and all of us can figure out if we can match it with funds from this year and buy the car this year. And like I said, there are some funds available in different accounts we could probably match with. So, but just so everybody knows that account does not exist anymore. And there was a lot of talk about it, and I remember the whole conversation, but I wasn't sure what eventually happened, but that's what happened. Any questions for Denise? Donna?
Okay, I'm a little, I need some clarification. The account that's not available anymore is the detail account or the car maintenance?
All of it.
Well, let me just clarify. So when one of our offices does a detail for a third-party vendor,
Right.
we charge that vendor $50 an hour, say. We pay the officer $40 an hour, and the $10 is used for two things. One, to reimburse the Social Security that we have to pay so that we are net zero for this officer's salary, and anything left over goes into fee revenue, which goes into the general fund in the revenue for the police department. Now, if that detail were to use a car, they would pay an additional $20 an hour for the vehicle. There were times in the past where those funds were treated differently. They were used to buy a vehicle those years that we had, a lot of activity and the bridge was being built. And then the Chief Jones, with his grant, he used it to leverage the grant. But right now, that $20 per car is going into the fee revenue account for the police department. So it's going into the general fund, offsetting, being used to lower taxes and calculate the tax rate.
Right. One more question.
Go ahead.
I guess the the question for me is, how do we secure grants? They're usually like a match for the police. Either we do a resolution to make sure that whatever a matching grant is going to cost, that we're able, because I think the chief right now is looking into a grant for the cars to help pay for them. And would we have to take out of the general fund to do that? Because it saves us money. And I thought we were using from the detail, and the detail money's in the general fund. So how do you take out of that to do the grant?
Donna, what we did once before is we just took it over. We just took it out of what we had. We went through accounts last time and we found the match from these accounts. So we looked at our expenditure, what accounts we had money left over in, and whether or not we felt it was safe to take it out of there. Council contingency was one of them. I know that for a fact.
I think sorry.
But as far as the detail account, that was a big thing with the budget committee. That was a big, and I'll be honest, that was a big thing with Justin Katz, and was one of the things he fought us on. And that's how it ended up in the general fund. And at the time, I didn't agree with it. I thought that the detail money and the rent money for the cars should be used to buy cars, but it didn't happen. So that detail money does not exist anymore. It does exist. It's in the general fund. But what we've done in the past is if he comes to us with a grant, we look at all our accounts and we, to the best we can, we try to match. And I think we can do that this year. And I talked to Chris about it and he did agree with that. We may be able to do that.
We should be able to find money for it.
Yes. So, and I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, but during the discussion on the cars, I did say that we had to try to buy some of the cars this year with that grant match, and not put all these cars in our budget for this year. But that's how we've done it before. And like Denise said, that detail money, that money is not as big as it used to be. So I don't even know if we could match it.
I think Donna was asking how you would go about reserving it, correct?
Right.
Yes, and have it available for these matching grants.
Well, I would think it was like any other resolution where you reserve funds for a restricted purpose.
Right, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
Well, the alternative would be in the fee resolution, a fee ordinance, that if those fees that generated the $20 an hour were restricted for vehicle purchases with council approval, I mean, the money would just sit and grow until the council decided to utilize it. So
right.
you might not even need a grant. You might just buy a car directly out of those funds as they grow. But so you're using it basically. It's not on for today's discussion, but we're basically using assets to generate money that go to the general fund that don't replace the asset.
And I do want to tell you, and that's what I was bringing up, that resolution may be fought.
No, I get it. But that's what it is.
Because that's what we were doing with it. So,
yep.
Jay?
Well, what they were doing was it was going in the general maintenance account, automobile maintenance account in the police department, which was probably not appropriate. So that's where that money's was getting spent.
Right.
They weren't restricted. They weren't in some restricted account.
No, we were recording it as a reimbursement. It was being recorded as a reimbursement to vehicle maintenance.
And I agree, it shouldn't be done that way. If they're going to generate the monies and if you're going to expend them for vehicle purchases, they should be restricted totally for council approval for vehicle replacement.
But we am I right to say, Denise, that we did buy a car with that fund?
Those were the days of the bridge detail.
Right.
Yes, and Chief Blakey did use that money to buy.
He went to the council and he said, I have this opportunity and
yes.
I think this, and that's how it all came about.
So it might not have been appropriate as properly as it should have been, but it was set that way.
No, I get it. No, I get how it was done.
That it happened.
But once it went into his automobile as a replacement, nobody would really see the wiser of it, and he could just spend money that nobody really found
Correct,
It started building that account up where you could buy a lot of things out of that account. And
correct.
that had no control to it. So if it was restricted, it would have much more control.
Well,
But we're not there. Well, that's not for today's discussion anyhow. That's,
No.
you know,
Jay has his hand up.
yeah,
Yeah, he's held up for a while.
I think I've lost the ball on one part of this. When the casino is open, we still have two details up there. We have a fireman and a policeman.
Right.
Do we still have a car there?
we do.
Okay, so we do have the car, but the fee structure for that car has changed?
There is no fee structure for a car at the casino. The casino doesn't need a car. So, but in order to get our staff there, and if we have an emergency in town and they need to get called out for whatever reason, they need to be in some sort of town vehicle to get there. And it's appropriate to have them that they're in a vehicle that has lights and all the rest of it. You know, if they're on their way to an emergency, they shouldn't be utilizing their own vehicle to do that. So we do send a vehicle to the casino, but the casino doesn't see any need to pay for a vehicle because it has no purpose on their property other than for commuting purposes for the detail. So they don't pay for it.
So 2 years ago, when this all started, I was very much afraid that this would become the case. And I even thought at one time, if they were smart, they would buy a vehicle. But none of that has happened. So we have a vehicle there and they don't pay for it. So they're just paying for the officer, the police and the fire.
Correct.
I've talked to Chief Jones about this, and he feels there has to be a vehicle there for the town's purpose. But the casino does not feel that they need a vehicle there.
Yeah, I understand that. I figured at some point they would say that.
Mike,
Chris, is this the same relationship they have in Lincoln?
It is pretty much the same. The relationship in Lincoln is slightly different than Tiverton's. Tiverton actually has a mandate that they actually have to have details. Lincoln does not have a mandate. So if it's Lincoln's discretion as to whether or not they're going to have details at the facility at all. So, and with that, my understanding is that they do not pay for vehicles for those details that go there, for the same purpose, that they're for commuting purposes only.
Okay.
Mike was part, way back when this was all set up, it was part of the safety protocol that the police chief was part of, and also their security team was. And it was decided with the town council and the town administrator that we did need details there.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I wanted to make sure that the relationship of what was described for us was the same as Lincoln, because if it wasn't, I'd have concerns if they were paying Lincoln for a car to be there and not us.
Yeah, it's very strange because Lincoln does not have a requirement to have police officers at the place. And at the time, we thought that that was kind of peculiar, and our police chief was, no, we need to have details there. Donna?
yeah, I just want to go over the fact that according to the charter, that any revenue was supposed to go into the general fund. And I think that was the argument with these side accounts that weren't accounted for, that all of a sudden you find out that there's this account that's for details that it really says it's the same as the third-party billing. Would like to use it to buy a rescue vehicle. If you make $300,000, for $250,000, you can buy yourself a new rescue vehicle with cash. But because the charter says that it has to go into the general fund, you really can't have a separate detail account unless you do a resolution to say that that money will be used to do matching grants to buy police cars. That was the argument a while ago with Mr. Katz.
It can also be done by ordinance.
Yeah, it can also be done by ordinance.
Just have to bear with me for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay, but we may wanna, Joan, when are our resolutions due? I don't remember that. It's in March, I think, right?
I think it's March 3rd.
Yeah, me too. I think it's the same time our budget is doing.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I have it somewhere, but my dining room
'Cause-
table's pretty. All right.
Because revenue and the final budget and the resolutions are all due at the same time.
Yes, and we discussed that the other day. Any other questions for Denise while we have her here? All right, Denise, thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us.
No problem. Good luck.
Thank you,
If we have
Denise.
other questions, I might bring you in another meeting.
Okay, you can
Okay.
text me.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm just on this, the FTR timeline that we had gotten at the beginning.
Yep.
It says that we have to submit resolutions for April 8th.
Oh, wow. So we've got a while.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are some resolutions we are gonna have to do this year to keep these restricted funds the way they are. If we decide to. Okay, so the next would be recreation.
Yeah, on page 16.
Yes. First of all, before we, hi, Stu. Oh, Stu, we have to bring you in, and Chris left us, so wait 1 second. Hi, okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Before we get into your general budget, one of the reasons why I brought you in today was because of the town farm playground equipment that the DPW director had put 50,000 in there.
Mhm.
There was a question on whether or not that was for the matching grant. And I did talk to Denise. There is 50,000 put aside
Yep.
for your match already.
Yep.
That was done last year. So this 50 is in addition to that money. And I think my question was, do we need to put this in this year?
Thanks for asking. And also thank you for giving me some time to join you. So first part of this is that I think it's a bit of a misnomer where it's listed as playground. It's not needed for the matching grant. That's already been set aside. It would be something that the council would have the opportunity to help expand on, for example, like the pickleball courts for that part, because there is more work than we're going to have to take it down to the base ground and redo it. There's more there. But I think in looking at and having spoken with Director Rogers, it's not for the playground that we're really looking at it, not why he intended to put it in there. If you look at town farm as a whole, there are some items that were outside the scope of the grant that do require attention at some point. So for example, in the southern part of town farm near the parking lot there's a building. Within that building, it's currently being used for some storage. It's infested with mold. There are bathrooms in there that are not usable. And so there are some expenditures that would have to be done at some point to address that. There's also, if you go further back, there's parking lot areas there that could be used. Right now, it's just grassy. There's going to be some work that has to be done to make those usable. And as town farm gets more volume to it, there's going to have to be additional parking. So again, these are things that are important. It does not mean that it's a tie to the grant in particular, because like the request I put in for a security system, it was outside the scope of the grant, and it will not preclude us moving forward with that project. But it is something to be aware of, that it's going to keep coming back up, and will have to be addressed. So it's up to the council whether this is the right time to do it, but I do want to offer that up as part of the rationale behind it.
Now, my question is, and I've asked every department head this, if you had to pick a priority between town farm security or playground, or that $50,000 for the playground updates is what it says here, which one would be your priority?
So I would say the security system personally, for two reasons. One of which is that we put in a slide thanks to the Tiverton Educational Foundation at Picasset this past year, and there's already somebody who's carved their name inside of it. Anybody who saw what happened at Fort Barton with graffiti recently, that made the rounds and was just really unfortunate. We had about $1,500 to $2,000 worth of damage done at Town Farm last year with somebody with a four-wheeler. I'm really concerned we're going to invest a lot of time, resources, and funding from the town into making Town Farm an incredible location and then have the problem of somebody destroying pieces of it. So I would put that at the top. Again, you know, we realize this is a multi-phase project, but directly answer your question, that would be my priority.
So the $50,000 could be put off for another year until we see what we have there and decide what the priorities to go further would be with that.
Yeah, the one thing that we are looking at right now is how we can adjust some additional parking. Anyway, we're gonna have to figure that out, and that might get something that we could potentially roll into additional fundraising for, so we're not burdening taxpayers. But that building right now is it's non-habitable, it's not usable in any way, shape, or form. It's just dangerous. So we're gonna keep that as a location. You'll probably hear me come back next year and talk about it if it's not included this year.
All right, so I think you're there, Rick.
Yes, I am.
What would it cost to just demolish that building since it's an unsafe structure?
So
Estimate.
to demo it, you might be looking at, you know, off the top of my head, maybe $10,000. But there is a lot of mold. It's unsafe. Whether or not it could be resurrected as it is for, you know, maybe $20,000 or so, we have to do more analysis, and it might cost more like $30,000. But to demo it would be $10,000, I'm guessing.
So do you advise that we demo it? It sounds like, I know what building this is, and it is in really bad shape. It's been up there forever. Would you advise demoing it? Do we need it?
A building there certainly could be used, but I would want to look at it a little more, Denise, to know we might just be better off replacing it with what they call Connex boxes for people that have storage. But at some point, I think the town would want to look at putting in bathrooms there instead of just porta-johns, but you may not want it in the same location. So I would want to look at it some more, but probably more than 50% chance it would just be demoed and other things would take its place.
So because it's become an unsafe situation, if we decrease that 50,000 to 10,000 and plan on demoing it, and then if you come back to us and decide, well, that might not be a plan, at least it's there for whatever we decide to do with it, would that be okay?
That would be okay with DPW and maybe Stu too. I'd like to ask him if he has any other ideas for storage for the different leagues, etc. And but I wouldn't want to strictly say it has to be for the demo of the building in case something else came up that it could be used. So it could be reworded.
Yeah, well, we just put it as a we just put it as a $10,000 playground update, whatever you want to call this, and then you can decide what to do with it.
Yes. How about town farm area or something like that, and go from 50,000 to 10,000?
Yeah, it's something like town farm area improvements or something.
And I would offer that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, this is just my idea. The council's not voting on it. It's just something that I was thinking about last night. Stu, do you have anything else to say?
My only comment was, I think that if there's an opportunity for us to be able to salvage what's there in any way, shape, or form within whatever funding would be available, that we would attempt to do that first, because there are restrooms in there. So I don't think the demolition is the first step that I would look at, although it obviously is on the table. Rick is correct that we may, in future phases of the town farm planning, try to look at a different location, but we also are spending money on portable restrooms in the meantime, the porta potties. So we want to see, what our options are to help minimize cost of the town long term.
Does that have a leach
Okay,
field?
I wanted to be more specific with that, and just I don't think $50,000 is can happen, but if we can put something in there, that's what my discussion is. And the council may not agree with me, but it's just something that I'm throwing out there. Jay?
Well, I'm sure, as we all know, that building, we're talking about the one by the tennis courts, right? Yep. That's pretty much been a derelict for a decade. And I didn't realize it had bathrooms in it, but keep in mind, mold remediation is very expensive. Now, if we tear the thing down and truck it up the hill to the landfill, we avoid all that. That's point number one. Point number two, it's undoubtedly serviced by a septic system. If we build a new building, you will be putting in a new septic system. So you got to put $25,000 in the back of your head just for that. So
Yeah, and just to that particular point, there are grants available through the DEM in the future.
That's true, but just keep in mind, it's going to be more than just build a new building, which we could do, town volunteers could do that. But then half of that, let's say we could build a new structure for 25 grand, you got to add the other onto it because of that septic system. So it's a little more complicated than just tearing down and building new.
Right, but what I'm saying is if this is deemed an unsafe building, and if somebody gets into it and there's an accident there, I don't want to be told that this was unsafe because I'm being told it's unsafe right now.
Right. I'm in favor of tearing it down.
Yes, so to tear it down and then in the future plan on whether or not we want to build something there or if we want to make it more regionalized down the other area. But I am concerned that it's been called unsafe, and I think we need to do something about that.
Well, one other question I'd have to ask is, Stu, if we did put a new structure there sometime in the future with bathrooms in it, would that get rid of the need for porta potties?
Yes.
Okay, because they're not cheap to rent and maintain either.
And I think Councilor deMedeiros' point is a good one, that I don't know that is the long-term best location for it, because you have got a really big spread. And in general, with pickleball and the outdoor fitness part, you'll have adults on one side of the parking lot of the town farm, and then you'll probably have more youth on the other side. So how do you create maybe a centralized area that doesn't require just a lot of crossover? So that is something that needs to be evaluated more, and what it would look like. I don't have a good answer for you right now, but yeah. Good point.
If I may add in to Jay's question and add to what Stu and Denise are saying, if the town wanted to heat the building all year, then in the future, then you could get rid of porta potties. But if that became a more expensive option, you may decide not to heat the building and simply have porta potties in the winter if you wanted to have the availability for people to go to the bathroom as they're using the walking track, etc., or anything else in the winter. So I just mentioned that in regards to the porta potties.
Thank you, Rick. Someone else had their hand up, I believe. No? Okay. So any other questions about Stu's capital? Which is only those two items, am I correct?
3.
Okay, 3.
Yeah, there's playground equipment upgrades townwide. So that's like the Bayview area, the
I'm sorry.
Harbormaster area, so it's, I think that's all other parks, correct, Stu?
Correct. Yeah, I think Director Rogers put that in there, but yes, you're correct.
And that's a $10,000 item.
It's 45.
45. That's what it's listed.
Yeah, I'm not looking at this where you're looking at it.
The 10,000 is the senior center above.
2 lines down, I think, is where it's at.
All right, I got it. So the security system is 16.
Correct.
Okay, and then the equipment and the upgrades. Okay, I see. So the 45 is what he was talking about.
Correct.
And that's the other part. Okay. All right, Stu, do you want to go on to your recreation budget?
Sure.
And that's on page, somebody help me.
16.
I'm just going to step away for 1 second. I'll be listening, but my video won't be there. I have to do something. Go ahead, Stu.
Okay. So just at a very high level, one of the things that Recreation was looking at after last year is we had a recreation coordinator who at the end of last year ended up spending, because of the way COVID broke out, the majority of her time focusing on the beaches. In discussions with the Rec Commission, their recommendation is to split it essentially into 2 coordinator level positions instead of 1 overarching position. So there'd be 1 for the beaches and then 1 for the parks that would also interface with leagues. The numbers in here, and I do have a breakdown of what we've requested that I'd be happy to send to people if there's an interest. We also have segmented out events as a separate line item because we were finding that it was just mixed in with supplies, I believe, before, and it didn't seem to make sense. Now, I do want to say that there is a lot of collaboration that occurs between the Rec Commission and the police department and the fire department and the library, and we're all trying to come together to provide a cohesive recreational calendar for Tiverton residents. It doesn't mean that it's all going to be under Recreation Commission, but the reason I say that is that the funds that are in here could go to support other recreational endeavors that are spearheaded by, say, the police department. So the number is lower in part because we still don't know what to expect for COVID, but also just because it seemed appropriate to drop that number down a little bit. The one line item that I had asked for last year that I'm putting back in this year that's a much bigger bump is a $5,000 online registration system. And I will tell you, last year it was because we had recreation volunteers that had to do it in person, and I was trying to reduce the amount of time that was committed for people, the residents traveling back and forth from places, and convenience. This year it's really more safety centric because we're trying to figure out if we're able to run any programs or events, how do we do that with COVID without creating direct contact situations? So there's a safety element to it with my request this year. It is still the same $5,000. I'm open to other suggestions if people have them on how to bypass that. But frankly, in speaking with other recreation directors throughout the state, they're pretty much all going this direction. It would end up eventually being, just so you're aware, a recurring fee for that cost.
Any questions? Now, the special winter, I'm sorry, I stepped away for 1 second. That includes the Halloween and Christmas events?
Likely, yep, assuming COVID allows for it.
Well, let's hope by October we can do something.
I'm really hoping. I'm hoping by summer.
Yeah, okay. Any
Jay
questions?
has a question, Denise.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
Stu, is the online registration system an off-the-shelf program, or is it something, what is that going to become?
So it depends on the particular system you end up going with. Full disclosure, before I did what I do now, I used to own an online registration company, so I have some experience with it. We will try to make it as viable as possible, potentially to be used in other areas. We did look at what the town uses for permitting, and it just doesn't, it's not quite the right fit. Chris and I have had this conversation before, as has David Richard as well. So we're going to try and make it as turnkey as possible, purely because I won't be sitting in the seat as well forever. And we want to make sure somebody else could use it effectively and it's easy for volunteers. But I would also very happily try to open it up if there are other committees who have an interest in using it.
Well, I guess part of my question is, would this be a program, if you will, that's just unique to recreation, or is it something, there's a sort of movement in town to get as much IT stuff as we can under the aegis of the town administrator? Would that become part of that, or would this become another program that's unique to you, like we have them for the tax assessor and the collector and everybody else?
I think inherently the way that they market these is around the idea that you're doing registration and reporting. Now, that said, you do bring up a really good point, and I do think it would warrant having those discussions and having representatives from the administrator's office involved to try and multitask it as best as possible. And if we're going to make the expense, let's get the most out of it. And I couldn't give you a specific answer on where the applications would be, but it'd be interesting to find out.
Okay, thank you.
Stu, you probably addressed it. I'm sorry, the dog's acting up. The beach coordinator, you reduced that salary?
We reduced the salary for the rec coordinator and split it between going to the parks and programs coordinator and then the beach coordinator. So it actually ends up sort of splitting out between the two. It's two
Would it be
positions
two
instead of
separate positions?
correct. Yeah.
Okay,
With a focus on each of the areas specifically.
okay,
And they would be.
which is a good
part-time
idea.
staff. They would also be part-time staff.
Right.
They're not full-time. They wouldn't be paid all year. They'd only be paid the segments of which they, that the work entails.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because one of the pieces we discussed at our last commission meeting is that we want to reduce the time frame for the employment, because we found that with the events, by the time, at least in the last 2 years, we've gotten into it, while the rec coordinator has been helpful, it's really been volunteer led, and we feel like we can continue that for right now.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Deb?
And you had said that this, the online registration, that'd be recurring. Would it be recurring at like the $5,000, or is that just the initial setup?
I believe it would be pretty close to that number. But there's also, just interestingly enough, there is data that shows that online registration actually helps increase revenue simultaneously because it's an easier access for people. And there is an opportunity down the road to expand it, sort of like what Councilor Edwards was saying, to make it a little bit more dynamic. So if people don't have to travel, they're more likely to just get online and take care of buying a program or what have you.
Any other questions? Donna?
Yeah, with the uncertainty of being able to have camps, recreational activities, I don't know if it's something we could put off a year for online registration, seeing the budget so tight this year and not knowing if we can even have registration or any programs because of what's going on. Unfortunately for these children, it's not really fair, but it is the way it is. I mean, we're going to put camp counselors of $8,000 in here, and I don't know if it's likely that we'll be having any programs or any registration for programs.
So it's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you of what the environment's going to look like with COVID in 6 months. What I can say is the leagues in town, Little League, soccer, field hockey, all of them are going to continue to provide opportunities for kids. And from a town standpoint, I can also tell you that other municipalities are looking at running programs this coming summer. I also am personally on calls with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee pretty much every week, getting current data just as part of my regular employment. And so I'm sure as it does for everybody else, it kind of guts me that we weren't able to do something last year for the kids, and I'd like to give it every opportunity. The reality is that not having an online registration system puts a significant impact on the rec commission to try and run it, and also makes it a lot harder for people to get involved if we're able to. So I think if that were to be removed, it really kind of stacks the deck against even being able to potentially do it. I definitely understand your concerns. I don't disagree with them, but I'm just concerned that without it, it adds an extra level of complexity that we'd love to avoid.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up.
Go ahead, Donna.
It's my concern is that we tax the taxpayers for something that may not happen. That's my concern. I just don't like taxing people, and it just goes in the general fund. It doesn't seem fair to me. And I just think we need to really have, be on the ball as far as making sure if these programs are going to be held or not, and if they can, because once it's in the budgets, it's in the budget. That's my only concern. And $5,000 and with the $13,000, that's a lot of money. So anyway, I don't know how to resolve that, but I don't like taxing people for things that might not happen. That's my concern.
Mike?
So two things, Stu, and one, I apologize, I may have missed them, trying to multitask with something going on at work. the online system that we're talking about, the $5,000 there, that, you know, you're not even gonna, I assume, be able to have this in place for this recreation season because this is next year's budget. So this is being planned for?
Well, so in speaking with a couple of different vendors, because I just did some basic due diligence before we started, there would be the ability for them to implement the system and bill us at a later date if we so chose. So that's something that's viable. Just it's a matter of timing for the billing. So we could have it come in as part of this budget.
So still,
Well, but you wouldn't be able, if you're not authorized under the next year's budget to do it, you can't go ahead and start it and then get billed and not be able to pay.
Right.
So you still need to get through the FTR, even if it's on there, you still need to get through the FTR process. Okay. Second question is, you said you split the 2 coordinator positions, unless there's an updated document that I am not looking at, there's a difference of $2,000 between them. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the beach actually, I think it's a lot, it comes down to the dynamic of what the responsibilities are. The beach coordinator position is sort of a little bit more laborious one. So that's why there's a difference in it.
Okay.
Also, the seasons run a little bit longer for the
that's-
beach coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
Memorial Day to Labor Day for the beach, and it's only July and August for the parks.
Jay?
I'd just like to make 2 observations that take them or leave them. Number one, with what's going on with COVID now, I think with the vaccinations and everything, I think that we will in fact end up having some sort of summer recreation programs going forward. And if that is available, I think you're going to see a very massive increase in its use. It's not really evident in the revenue numbers that we're seeing right now, but if you look at last year, even with COVID, the beaches did very well. And I've always been an advocate of these programs should be able to fund themselves. What you receive in revenue, you know, it at least equals what you spend, and the beaches traditionally do. And I think, you know, that's going to see an upturn. Also, with things like winter recreation events, we call it now. When I first went on the budget committee, I had no idea what that was. Turns out it is a big deal in Tiverton, Halloween and Christmas and all of that. So just keep it in mind that as COVID terminates or becomes less of an issue, these are the kinds of things that directly affect a lot of people in town. And they're going to use them, and we should find a way to support them as best we can.
Bill, I see your hand. I just don't want to forget my mindset right now. Mike did bring up a very interesting point, but this online registration would be for next year, which probably I would hope next summer will be back to normal. And if we wanted to start the online registration this year, we'd have to find it from our present budget. And it might be something we think about, because if we have $5,000 we could give to the Recreation Committee right now, because the way I'm thinking is these people are going to register in March, April, May, whatever. We know for certain probably it would be safer to do it online than to have a whole bunch of people congregate and register. And hopefully we'll be able to run these programs this summer. So this $5,000 would be for next year, but I think I would be willing to try to figure out how we could fund it for this year, because people are not going to be able to come out and register as much as they could because of the restrictions right now. And I think it's, and like Jay said, I think by the summer, we may be able to do something. And with everything that's been going on, I think we need to do something for these kids. So that's just my thought, and I didn't want to forget that. Stu, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that the crossover, and it's a really good point by Councilor Burke about the timing of this. We looked at doing essentially a homegrown system for this past year, and then the summer camps didn't come to fruition. I think for the first part of it, having the ability to have it as part of our system would be great. The reality here is that even if we did not get it until the budget was approved and moved forward, we could still figure out how to implement something in the interim that would be a stopgap measure. It wouldn't be perfect, but so what you're suggesting would frankly make life a lot easier for everyone involved, residents, commission members, et cetera. Also, just as a note, something we had looked at with parking passes for future years is the ability to purchase your beach pass online. So this could potentially give that avenue. Other towns do it quite well. The validation of being a resident is something that we'd have to look at pretty closely, but that's the devil in the details.
I'm looking at your revenue. I'm looking at what you've spent for last year and seeing if you have anything left over that could help out with this. With this 5,000. Because supplies and miscellaneous, you still have a pretty good remaining balance. You didn't get anything for winter stuff last year. All right, well, it's just something to think about if we wanted to set it up and we could figure out a way to squeeze that $5,000 out of some of these accounts, we could set it up.
I can go back and take a look at my budget and present something to Chris, and then have him connect with you, or I can connect however for recommendations on if that's viable.
Yeah, I'm looking at your budget now and maybe, I don't know, but maybe, and if that doesn't, like whatever you could get, maybe we could find the funds to add to that to start it this year. Because I think it's important for this year because of what I said. You really can't go somewhere and register. So it is important for this year, and we'll keep our fingers crossed we'll be able to support some kind of program in the summer.
Denise, Bill's had his hand up.
Yeah, I know. Bill?
So Stu, can you educate me when the camp starts? When the camp, if you were to get a camp counselor, when they would start? So we're looking at some kind of time frame here.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have the start dates for what it's traditionally been in front of me. I believe it's June after the kids get out of school, like sort of mid-June, if I'm not mistaken. And then it runs till sort of mid-August. I believe that's right.
And when would would a camp counselor start? Maybe in May?
No, well, the coordinator would start earlier because they'd been involved in some of the processes. The counselors themselves would yeah, we would look to do an orientation week with them ahead of time, at least a couple of days to get them up to speed. Same thing with the beach staff, just to acclimate them to processes and safety protocols, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, anything else you'd like to add, Stu?
No, just want to say thank you. Again, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stu.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Stu.
You too.
So the next one is Harbormaster and Harbor and Coastal Management. I see Tyler is with us.
Page 11, if anybody's wondering where it is.
How's it going today?
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
No one's here from Harbor and Coastal Management, but I was wondering if you'd be able to speak on the capital, which would be Harbormaster triaxle trailer, correct?
Yes, I can speak on that.
And then how about the waterfront infrastructure, the stone bridge dock, if we had any questions?
Was the Stone Bridge dock put in again for this year?
Yes, it was, $10,000.
Oh, perfect.
It's not saying you're gonna get it, Tyler, but.
No, I know. I just wasn't sure if it was added again this year.
Yeah, it was. So would you like to talk about the triaxle trailer, please?
Yeah, so last year's budget committee, I mentioned that the trailer was on the way out, and as as last year it failed, so now we have to pay to have the marina haul and store the boat. And then if it has to come out in the middle of summer, they also have to use their hydraulic trailer and haul it. So now we have to pay for that instead of having our own trailer, which would be free to haul it to the boatyard and then also free to store it at DPW. So just for the winter haul out and storage fees, around $1,500. And that's not including if I have to get hauled out in the middle of summer for any service work or anything like that.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
How big is the boat?
It's a 28 footer.
So right now you're saying it costs us about 1,500 and whatever it would cost if you need to be hauled out during the summer.
Yeah, so that was this fall's bill for being hauled out and stored on stands at Maritime at their yard.
So that was 1,500.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you know how much it is for when they put it back in?
I believe it's another $350 to put in.
Okay. So each time they haul, if they had to do it in the summer, estimate about $350 more each time, both ways, in and out.
Oh, that's each way.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question, Jay?
Yeah, I've always been in the dark on this. The fire department has, the fire department has a boat, correct?
Yes.
And they have a trailer.
I'm not sure of that question.
Correct. Yes, they do have a trailer.
Because my question was going to be, if we approve Tyler getting a trailer, would it be multitasked around or would just be for his use?
So the fire department's boat is on its trailer.
It's on the trailer all the time.
Right, they don't put it
Okay.
on one for the year.
So that's a wash.
Okay. Any other questions about the trailer? Okay. And the waterfront infrastructure, we heard a little bit about this. Well, we heard a lot about this from Rick. Would you like to talk about it, the Stonebridge dock? Tyler?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little.
Okay.
I know Rick was in with the Harbor Commission and all us last year to discuss it. The plan is to put a dinghy dock at Stonebridge. Previously, not in my time, but we have had a dinghy dock there previously, and we have all new, I believe it's 2 or 3 new docks and also a new ramp. So we already have all the stuff needed to put this dock in. We just need, I believe, the pylons moved a little bit or replaced completely. They would have to be inspected first, and then also a way to get onto the ramp. There's a landing there currently, but we would have to make another ramp to get to that.
Okay. And Rick did speak about this last week. Any questions about this item?
So would it be more than just dinghies? Would you be putting the Harbormaster's boat there?
So that's been talked about. I guess that's not really my decision. I'd rather not put it there. I have no issues with it at Standish. I know we do pay to keep the boats at Standish, but I'd rather see the dinghy dock used for town residents and also for people to get onto shore. Because right now we have absolutely nothing for anyone to tie up to or come ashore. If we clog that up with my 28-foot boat and the fire department's 20-foot boat, you're already getting pretty tight on space. And then if anyone has to go out for a call, you're fighting to get by dinghies and such.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. All right, so let's look at your budget, page 11, I believe.
Yep.
Harbormaster, well, it's pretty good, Tyler. You haven't asked for an increase. You're probably the only department.
Yeah, so no, I'm pretty fine with the budget the way it is. It's been perfect how it's laid out for me and been very effective. Everything's the same this year as it was last year. No increases, no decreases. I can work perfectly fine with this budget. I know you've seen that not much has been used yet, but as usual, that gets used in the spring.
Yep.
Okay.
That's pretty much it for that.
Any questions for Tyler? Jay?
Donna was first, Denise.
Oh, I'm sorry, Donna.
Yeah, with the boat operations, if the trailer, we decide to go along with that, it certainly wouldn't be a $15,760 item, because this is for next year's budget. I mean, it would be half of that, because you'd be buying the capital item, but it really wouldn't be it would no longer be in the budget.
So
as an item, right?
right now, that 15,760 is my working expense. So without having a trailer, I'm actually taking money away from my normal budget to account for this. So now I'm gonna have $1,500 roughly. Plus, if I get hauled out, I'm gonna have, let's say, roughly $2,000 less to use toward fuel and repairs now. So without a trailer, I'm actually losing part of my budget now.
That's not clear to me.
Yeah, I'm a little confused myself.
Madam President?
Yes.
So Tyler, what I hear you saying is that boat operations is for maintenance of the boat, the regular gas, oil, etc. If you have to do any minor repairs on the boat, maybe I'm not a boater, so painting and things like that. And right now, the money that you're paying to the marina is coming out of that. So you've already basically backed out, or you will back out at least $1,800 this year because of what you paid in the fall and what you anticipate to pay to put the boat back in because you don't have a trailer. So that brings it down to let's say 2,000. So 13,760 is what you have remaining to start this season with, if that number is the same this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So are you saying, Tyler, are you agreeing or disagreeing with the fact we could take 2,000 from that operation?
No.
No, so that's been my operation money for, I don't think it's actually changed in the last 5 years. That's the 15,760. I use all that for operations and all that throughout the year. So now that I have to pay to haul the boat and store the boat, I have less now to use.
Oh.
So you would want to add 2,000 to his money, to his current account if he were made whole.
Correct. If I don't have an option of getting a trailer, I would need to put in the budget an extra 2,000 a year to compensate for not having the trailer.
Yeah, and actually it would be more like 3,000 because you haven't accounted for the middle of the summer pullouts and put back in if you needed it.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So I know what Donna was saying, but Donna, do you understand it now? He hasn't been using this money for that. So if he has to, he's going to need more money in there.
So basically, it's going to reduce his operations.
Right. So if we buy the trailer, it will help not use this money for what he may need to do if he doesn't have a trailer.
All right, well, I just needed it. It was confusing.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Me too. I was confused. Jay?
Excuse me. I'll make the same comment for Tyler that I did for recreation. Although it's not really visible in the current revenue figures, last year, he made about almost $43,000. That was 107% above what we budgeted for revenue for the Harbormaster. So again, this is one of those few entities in town that makes money, makes more than what it spends. And to me, you know, I have no problem with reinvesting a little bit of that extra income into his operation. And having a trailer will alleviate having to pay somebody else to do the things that trailer would in fact do if we had it. I see no reason why we shouldn't invest. And it's a long-term investment. The trailer doesn't just last 2 years. If it's well taken care of, I don't know, Tyler, 10, 15 years?
Honestly, that trailer will probably last the lifetime of the boat at this point.
There you go. So again, like I said previously, he makes more than he spends, and we should be able to invest a little bit of what he makes back to it.
I agree, Jay. And I do know that the fire department's trailer, they've had that for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Over 10 years, I think.
You just hose it down after it's been in the salt water.
Right, right. Any other questions for Tyler?
And just to put in perspective, the trailer that was under it, that's original to the boat from the 90s.
Wow.
The Harbormaster trailer?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
last century.
it's been taken care of, but I mean, over 20 years, you can only take care of it so much.
Oh, I think they've done a good job taking care of it if we've had it over 20 years.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, so that's good. And Tyler, I do want to say you're doing a fantastic job. I said it the other day when we spoke about you. You've come a long way and you've really done a wonderful job for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Denise?
Yes.
Just a different comment. Last year, the dock issue came up, and all the budget committee went and toured DPW, and they do in fact have a large amount of the structure or the components for this dock in storage at DPW. They're back in the weeds, but they have them. So, I mean, we can opt to just keep on letting them sit there and rot, or we can use them.
Rick, would you like to say something about Jay's comment? It looks like
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Denise. There is a great opportunity to make use of those facilities and those docks, and create a better waterfront by a little investment, by fixing up the existing spiles and the framework that's there. So I think DPW thinks it's a good investment. Thank you.
And if I can just say, last year when Mr. Cox came to the budget committee, he talked about the fact that he had actually gone into the water there and had looked under the water, and that everything looked in good shape. The pilings or whatever under the water. So he didn't seem to think that it was going to take a lot of effort to get it put in, and the pieces and stuff. Because we approved it last year. It was just with COVID and cutting things, we took it out after. Right. But
I think the town council did too, Deb.
Yeah,
approved it also.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Yeah,
we approved it, and then we had to do what.
And then
we did.
Chris took it out. Chris took it out.
Sorry, Tyler.
All right, Tyler, thank you so much. The Harbor and Coastal Management Committee, they're not here, and I'm not sure if we notified them to be, so it could have been my fault, or Chris's. Or Chris, I'll blame you too.
That's all right. But the only thing
but the only thing that they have the only thing there is the water quality testing.
Right. So I'll see if I can get a hold of Mr. Cox to see if he can give me an explanation. I do know that they want to do some testing in various areas to try to contain where the pollution does come from. And I know that we've done it in the past. So I think they want to continue on with that to make sure that we're keeping up with it.
I also, we approved that in 2019, 2020.
We did. It wasn't in 2021. So I don't know if you were doing it every 2 years.
Yeah.
I believe they just took a 1 year break on that.
Okay.
They've been doing the water testing since I've been Harbormaster, and last year they took a break. But other than that, they've been doing it ever since.
Well, I think because of lack of funds too. It's hard to tell, but there was a lot of things cut because of lack of funds last year. So that may definitely have been why that's not.
I think we may have cut that too.
Yeah, because if you look at it in 2019, 2020, we did give 2,100.
Yep.
So it just looked like that was a savings for this year. And it's back to 2,100 again. So if Bruce just wants to put something in writing and send it to Joan, and she can distribute to all of us, and then we can see what that is.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I think, I don't know how the rest of you feel about this, but are you willing to vote on these budgets, Park and Recreation and Harbormaster today?
I feel so, yes.
All right, because we have to do some, like, and keep in mind, this is preliminary votes. And at the end of all of this, we vote for the bottom line. And if anything needs to be changed, we can change it before March 3rd. Mike?
I just asked that when we get to recreation, we do the events line separate.
Sure. Okay, so let's go to recreation again.
So are you going to do capital recreation or the
So I'm
budget?
going to do capital as a whole next. And we'll go through every line item and decide what we want to spend in capital. And I have an idea about capital that I want to talk to you guys about. Okay, so the first one would be beaches, 8790. And that would be for beach salaries, beach coordinator, and beach expenses. Do I have a motion to approve the bottom line of 48,300? Or would we like to take those separately? Everybody see where I am on page
So
6?
moved.
On page 16.
So Mike made a motion to approve the total expense of 48,300.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Councilor Janick seconded that motion. All those in favor, Councilor Cook?
I'm sorry, I was sneezing. I didn't.
Okay, so Donna, we're looking at beaches, 8790. And Mike made a motion to approve the entire amount of 48,300. And that would be for beach salaries, beach coordinator, and beach expenses.
Okay, so the 8790.
No,
Okay.
48.
No,
No,
Okay.
8790, yes.
Yeah, account 8790, yes.
yes, account 80. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I did the same thing.
Numbers.
All right, yes.
Okay. Councilor Edwards,
Yes.
Councilor Vieira,
Yes.
Councilor Janick,
yes.
Councilor Burk.
Yes.
Right, and someone's keeping, either Chris or Joan, you're keeping track of this so we can put this as a final number for now in case we change something, because the budget committee likes an update on what we vote on. Summer recreation. So that includes parks and programs, camp counselors, transportation fees, and online registration, and also supplies. Now, would we like to do this as a total of 23,000, or would we like to take each item separately? Do we have a motion for it?
A motion to approve the full amount of 23,000 for account number 8830.
Second,
And so made by Councilor Burke and seconded by Councilor Vieira. Councilor Cook,
Yes.
Councilor Edwards,
Yes.
Councilor Vieira,
yes.
Councilor Janick,
Yes,
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Special events, formerly the winter recreation, there's a line item of 1,500. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve $1,500 for events.
Second,
So a motion was made and second by Councilor Edwards and seconded by Councilor Vieira for 1,500 for events. Councilor Cook,
Yes.
Councilor Edwards,
Yes.
Councilor Vieira,
yes.
Councilor Janick,
yes.
Councilor Burke,
No.
and I'm a yes. So the total amount would be exactly what it is for Parks and Recreation, 72,800. Thank you. Harbormaster.
Can I ask a question quick?
Yes.
Mike, were you not happy with do you think that was not enough or too much?
It is because some of it is used for what are religious activities such as Christmas events. And
Okay, I understand.
I don't think public money should be used for that.
Okay, Harbormaster. I'm losing the page again. Okay. So Harbormaster, and that would be account 3360. And the total would be 30,235. And that includes salary, assistance, uniform clothing, boat operations, Harbormaster training, computer software, communication, supplies, and expenses. And it is exactly what was requested last year, just for people watching. Could I entertain a motion?
I make a motion to approve $30,235 for account 3360 Harbormaster.
Second,
So I have a motion by Mr. Edwards and by Council Edwards and a second by Councilor Vieira for $30,235. Councilor Cook,
Yes.
Councilor Edwards,
Yes.
Councilor Vieira,
yes,
Councilor Janick,
Yes, yes, but if we decide not to do the trailer, which,
we can
I'm
come
thinking
back to this.
we can come back. Okay, but yes,
Good point.
And, yeah, well, I was thinking that too, but like I said, we can always come back to these items if we've made some decisions that affect it. Councilor Burke,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And I am going to table Harbor and Coastal Management until we get something from Bruce about the water quality testing. Is that okay with everyone?
yes.
Yes.
All right. Capital, guys. I have an idea, and it's just an idea, and it's something that, and I talked to Chris about it too. In the capital funds account, the restricted account, we have 514,000. If we take some of that money and spend it on capital, we will not have to tax people for some of our capital, and we'll give more money for the budget committee too, because they have many decisions to make. I want to suggest that we take 400,000 from this account, leave 114, make sure we put a resolution that puts more money into this account next year. And we look at all these items and we spend $400,000. If we can spend less, of course, but a lot of these items are well needed. And try to keep within that 400,000. So would bring our bottom line capital to zero. And it would, and I think that, like Donna has said several times, we have taxed people for this money. We have it in a restricted account. We have $400,000 there. It would be a non-reoccurring, so we're not deficit spending or doing anything ridiculous. And I want to try to keep within the 400,000. Of course, if we go over, that's okay, if that's what we all want. But how do you feel about that, about doing it that way? For now, our goal is 400 and see where we are. Councilor Vieira?
Question, where again is this? Is it coming from?
It is in the capital reserve account, which is a restricted account that, now correct me if I'm wrong, the budget committee people can help me. I think it's 25% of what's left over at the end of the year, instead of going into the general fund. The council a few years ago put that into a capital reserve account and was for this reason. So once we got it up to an amount that was pretty reasonable, that we could start spending this on one-time items. And it's finally up to 514, which is not great. But if we took 400,000 from it, left that total at around 114, make sure we put the resolution to do it again so that account can go back up. And in the long run, it saves on taxes because we're not going to be taxing people for some of these capital expenses. Is that good?
So with saying that, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Okay.
Is that our limit for capital, 400,000?
It doesn't have to be our limit, Deb, but we have priorities. We can see
Right.
what 400 will buy us, okay? Let's put it that way. And then once we get to that 400, then we can decide if we need to spend more. But I'm just thinking that 400 goal for now. And I looked at different numbers and I have some ideas. But once we spend the 400, let's see what we have left. Let's see how much more we want to buy. Yes, Jay.
Last year, we did not have that resolution. Years before we did. So we would take 25% of any unexpended funds and divvy them up. Well, take the unexpended funds and divvy them up. And 25% went to a restricted capital fund. But last year, because of what happened, we didn't do any of that. Everything stayed in the general fund.
You know what, though? I wish Denise was still here. Chris, did she put some into this account?
Yeah, but it came from the resolution from the prior year.
You're right.
So at the end of June
You're
of
right. So
Right.
June 30th of 2020,
Right.
based on
Okay.
the resolution that was in May of 2019, is what added the money in after June.
But in June of this year, that's not going to happen.
But keep in mind, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, we still have the casino capital. We have many ideas of what's gonna happen with that, and once we talk about it in March. And I think I've been very specific that I want a committee to talk about how we spend that money. Hopefully that plan will be in place for next year, and we can start spending some of that casino money on town and school capital and not tax people for that capital next year. So it's almost the same plan I have, except that hopefully we'll have everything in place for what happens to the casino money next year.
So the only clarifier I want to try to make here is that the municipal capital account that was created with the 25% went into, those funds are generated from your town's municipal services, so your police, your fire, your DPW, of doing very good management, good budgeting, and good expenditures where they have excess at the end of the year, that those money should go to pay for their capital needs that they've requested that we've never been able to have money for.
Well, and absolutely in it. And anyone who's watching that says, well, you're spending that on town, this is town money that we have saved and put aside. But this helps every other account.
It does.
Because if we're not taxing for our capital needs, there's more money in the pot for the school committee or whatever else the budget committee wants to. So this is helping the entire town doing it.
It does.
It's helping the tax rate by doing this. The casino money, on the other hand, is something else we need to talk about because that's town money. And we need to talk about that. But this was from, and I have to give Chris credit, this was from very good management of our accounts this year.
Exactly.
Last year. So, Mike, yes, I see your hand, Mike. Go ahead.
So how long did it take us to accumulate this 514,000 roughly?
I want to say a couple of years.
2 or 3 years?
Yep.
And then we're going to go.
Remember, I think it was 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been that long.
And then we'll go without for a year since we have no resolution this year?
So, well, you don't have a resolution this year. Like I said, we still have to do and probably hopefully sometime in March, we're going to do the revenue end of this. You know, you could create an ordinance to do it for this year. It'd be a temporary issue that the council has that control that you could actually do this. It may not have been a resolution that was done by the time FDR, but if you really wanted to preserve any monies that we save by the end of this year, you could do it by ordinance to do the same thing.
Okay.
So, and I would obviously want to run that by Mike Marcello, just to make sure, but there is an avenue for you to do it if you really want to.
Okay. And Denise, maybe I missed it. How did you come up with the 400K number?
Honestly, I talked to Chris and I asked him, should we leave some money in there? And Chris advised that we leave about 100,000 in there in case we have some kind of an emergency that we need to pull from.
Right.
So not to deplete the whole thing. That's how I came up with it. I talked to Chris and I talked to the town administrator and I said, do we need to keep some amount in there? And he suggested 100,000.
So what I don't know is, so you could actually expend those monies now if you wanted to.
Yes, we could.
So these items come right off the docket. They're not even going to be requested, but you're still buying the capital needs of the community based on, proper management and proper due diligence and through council.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win for the entire town.
Right.
And if we pull it off this budget, I think it's a win-win. There's other monies there now, and
that's what the intent was originally.
That's what the intent was originally.
Right.
So, and I was very happy to see what was in here because this was the intent. I think it's 3 years ago because I was on the council. This was the intent to build this up and not tax people for these capital. Well, we did tax them, right?
Well, they're already taxed, yeah.
Right, so we put it aside, but these aren't reoccurring expenditures. We're spending the money that we save. It's just like we would in our household.
Right.
We spend the money we save.
We can purchase things cheaper because we have money up front and not have to cost it out over 5 or more years.
Which was probably, if we decide to do the rest, the fire truck, it will probably end up being that, but at least
the fire truck will,
yes. The payments out of this capital. And it's like paying up front.
So that's the one question I have that I don't know. And it's a Mike, maybe we need to ask Mike about the fire truck. Can you obligate something out of a restricted fund that you don't have the money for? In other words, is that something that would need to go before the FTR as a long-term expenditure or a capital need? Because we don't really have the money in the restricted account to pay for it now. So can you do a time payment on something? That's a good question for Mike to resolve, but I agree that if we could take the annual payment for it out of it, to be fine.
I think this has come up before, and I think the answer is yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we clear it.
But I mean, what you do, and I think what it was, how they said to do it was to put it on the budget as a line item, 100,000, and then to put it as an expense. We're taking it from that account, so it's very clear on the docket that is there, and in a way, the people are approving that we spend it and we're taking it out of that account. And I think that's how it was explained to me in the past. And anything that's going to go on and on, you do put it on the docket, but you do put how we're going to spend it.
Okay.
How we're going to pay for it, excuse me.
All right.
Bill?
So the $514,000 is a figure that was produced by the audit back on June the 30th.
Correct.
Right.
And Denise said that possibly it could have been spent down in the monthly expense reports.
No.
Or not just a restricted account that was never touched as of June. So that figure is solid.
So
Right.
There was one expenditure.
What she was talking about is the general fund account, that number is not solid yet. Because we don't know if we're going to have to take some of the 1.6 out of there that was appropriated last year.
So, what type of priority are we going to use? Are we going to use where we get the DPW plow and attachments, the fork truck, or are we just doing capital improvements? I'm not sure.
In the municipal capital.
Could be any of those.
Capital improvements. It could be any of those. And we have talked to the department heads, and I don't know if any of you wrote it down, but I know their priorities.
Yes.
So we look at their the way that I would do this, and it's just my opinion, is go through the number one priority for each department head and see what that adds up to. And then
Yeah.
look at our capital improvements, decide what we want to do there, and then see what our figure is, and maybe go to the second priority of the department head. But try to figure it out that way, if that sounds reasonable. Once we hit that 400, if this council feels that it's still important to buy something else, then we certainly can put it on.
Right.
But
And we could also swap, like rethink something and swap and go, well,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
I don't know if
Okay.
everybody likes this idea. Does anybody, is this how you want to try it? And then if we do it and we don't like it, then we can stop the procedure. Jay?
Well, as I always try to do on the budget committee and others did, we ought to have a target and try to live within that target. And then if it turns out we can't, then you negotiate.
Exactly. And I think that I'm very proud that we were able to put this in capital funds. And everyone needs to keep in mind, this target will not be taxed. It'll be money that we have. And this is, like I said before, this is a win-win for the entire town.
Yeah. So what do you want to start with? DPW?
Okay, so let's go in order. DPW. And Rick is here, right, Rick?
Yes.
That is correct. I am here.
Okay, Rick, so tell me your top priority. I think I wrote it, but since you're here.
Yeah, the top priority would be the used truck, two of them is my preference, obviously, and plow and attachments.
So it'd be the DPW used plow and attachments, and I put a 2 near there. Is that correct?
Right, and we were willing to, because we would get some plows out of it by putting forth 40,000 of the four-way plows with a parentheses 2. We would still need another 5,000, but negate that line for the four-way plows and simply put that money towards the 45,000 for 2 used trucks, plows, and attachments.
So when we were talking about this last week, I wrote $90,000. Is that a correct figure?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
That's what I
I'm
had.
lost on where that's coming from.
So he went.
So it's 82,000 for 2 trucks, right?
No.
That's not the 10-wheeler.
That's
a 10-wheel.
That's where Rick is confusing us.
So
It's
DPW used plow and attachment.
Plow and attachments.
And
So
then
40
DPW four-way plows.
So 45,000, okay, so it's 95,000.
90.
So it's actually 85,000.
85,000, I'm sorry.
We wanted to add 5,000 to it.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody? So we'd be buying under the item DPW used plow and attachments. We'd have a number 2 of those for $90,000. And this would, Rick, this would really help with your winter plowing.
Yes, that is correct.
And this is something we've been putting off for a long time. And we've been trying to avoid it and fixing and repairing, and it's just not cost effective anymore.
So can I ask what we're actually buying here, though? Are we buying like the big trucks and are we buying?
We'll have to answer that.
Yes, what we would be looking to get is 2 chassis, and then also we would be getting the plows and the attachments and the hydraulics, all the connections, and we would have those all installed, put together. And typically that is by Madigan, who supplied, for instance, the last 2 plow trucks. So they'd be used trucks and then new plows, attachments, hydraulics, connections, and that would be the labor and, et cetera, to put them together.
So what Chris is asking is we'll have 2 new plows.
Yes, 2 new plows, about the size of the existing old trucks, and we would try to reuse, obviously, the sanding bodies for what's on them now, we would put on the new chassis. So this money would not be enough to buy sanding bodies. A sanding body and plows, et cetera, is more along the lines of $50,000 without the truck itself. So this price assumes that we're going to be able to reuse the sanding bodies, and that's what our plan is.
And the sanding bodies are in good condition?
They're not in awesome condition, but they're in acceptable condition, and we would have to probably be converting the old pony motor style to the main engine drive. But we would hope to be able to do that. And when we have done a couple of those already. Some have worked well, some have not, because the main engine pulley and the where that ties in is not really adaptable. But we would try to cover that base when we get the new trucks. And also, we're still working on trying to convert some of those that keep conking out. And we think we have another lead on that. We found somebody who does that kind of thing. So we expect to be able to reuse the sanding bodies. They're not terrific, but we expect to reuse them. Eventually, down the road, they're going to conk out. But right now, we can reuse them, we think.
And how many trucks do we have that we need to replace, basically? I know you're only asking for 2 here, but just so the council gets a picture of what you're looking at in the future.
Yeah, within the next few years, looking ahead, really the 6 trucks that were built in the last century, along with the reused bodies even before that, they would need to be replaced. Okay. So you're looking at hopefully over the years, 6 new ones to replace the ones that are that old.
All right.
Plus these two?
Excuse me, Mike, go ahead. What?
No, plus these two?
No, that includes these 2.
So this is 2 of the 6.
Yes.
So we'd have to replace these. Oh. No.
Pardon me?
You're saying we have to replace 6, but we're going to replace 2 now.
Right.
Well, 6, I'm just trying to think ahead that eventually we would have to replace 6. You can't keep using, for the next 5 or 10 years, you can't be using trucks that were built last century. But right now, the pretty much immediate need is for 2.
Jay?
Well, Rick, you said some of the magic words that I've had a bellyache about for quite some time, and that's the sanding bodies. Are you going to be converting these things to hydraulic?
Well, that's what we're trying to do now, and we have had success. But what the hiccup is where the main engine, the front of the main engine, where those pulleys are put together, how much space they have between the fan belt and the engine block. That on some of the trucks is proven to be much more difficult. 1 or 2 of them have gone well, but last week or this week we did get a lead on somebody who has successfully done that and built a part as an adapter to do that, because somehow you have to have some kind of engine drive the sanding conveyor, spinner, whatever you use to move the sand. And some of the old bodies have those auxiliary pony motors. They're a separate fuel source. They're a separate engine. They're so old that they do not make parts for them anymore. So we have tried to convert some.
Well, Rick, the 2 used trucks that you would like to buy now,
right,
onto the back of which you will put sanding bodies, correct?
Yes.
Will those sanding bodies have hydraulics?
Yes or no?
Well,
yes or
I
no?
would say I don't know, because I don't know what trucks we take them off. Okay, some of the trucks have the hydraulics, and some of them have the pony motors.
My concern is, yes, we get new trucks and they They plow nicely. But I am not at all interested in putting a piece of junk sander on the back, which will have to go back to the barn because of it, even though we've invested a lot of money in a new used truck. So I would
my
like some
question-
assurance
My
that
question is,
we are going to do something to get rid of the pony motors.
and my question,
Yes.
Rick, how much would it cost to put new standards on these trucks? I think that's like, that's what our problem is in this town, is we keep trying to guinea rig things. So if we're gonna buy 2 used plowing attachments that work well, how much would it cost to put new standards on here?
I'd have to check that out because I was not that optimistic to think that we would be able to get that. I would guess off the top of my head, you're probably looking at something along the lines of $35,000, but I don't know what it would be. We'd have to check into that for a new sanding body, a new sander apparatus.
It would be $35,000 a piece for each truck?
That would be my guess, but I'm fairly confident that we will be able to short term convert some of the sanding bodies that we have now onto the new used chassis. Eventually, true, those sanding bodies may give way faster than the chassis do, but I think we'll be able to make use of those in a good, productive way. Later on, when finances improve a little bit, when the sanding bodies conk out, we would like to probably convert them because you can't keep using 40-year-old or whatever they are sanding bodies. But I'm confident, fairly confident, that we'll be able to convert some of the ones we have to hydraulics and put them on the chassis.
My concern is I don't want
6 of those.
My concern is I don't want next winter you telling us that these 2 new plows we bought, we can't use because we can't sand with them.
Exactly.
I'm certainly not against getting sanding bodies. I'm not against that at all. But I'm not sure that we need, I think we'll be able to get by, in the short term with what we have by switching them over to the used chassis. But again, I can't guarantee any of the trucks keep running because they keep conking out so quickly. But I'm not against at all getting sanding bodies, but I don't know how much they would cost. I'm just guessing $35,000.
Is that a high guess or a low guess?
No, that's about middle of the road because it's my understanding that a plow attachments and the sanding body go about $50,000, and so that's just a middle of the road guess.
Donna?
I just need to figure out what's the difference between what you're trying to do, Rick, and the 4-way plows. You want 2 of them. I don't get what's the difference.
Well, the used chassis and plows, the plows and attachments, they would be 4-way plows. The 4-way plow separate from that is to put on the trucks that we have now that don't have 4-way plows. That was the intent. Now, when those trucks get replaced, we would not need to get 4-way plows. We would already have them.
And I'm just really concerned that $90,000 for short term for more problems quickly. I don't know. I'd rather buy for $90,000 a brand new truck and get rid of one of them. I don't know. I don't know much about trucks, but I don't like spending money on something that's in a few years going to be junk. I'm concerned about that.
Right.
Well, the chassis won't be junk. The 2 chassis won't be junk. And the plows and the hydraulics that come along with it won't be junk. It's just the sanding body, which we're going to try to get as much life as we can out of it over the next year or 2 until we get money from Twin River or whatever. But the body, the trucks and the bodies itself should last a while.
But that's I have a concern like Donna, so we're buying DPW used plow, 2 used plows and attachments. How long do you think those will last, Rick? Like,
The trucks and the chassis and the plows, I would expect those to last. I would expect them to last 8 or 10 years.
okay,
But I'm not against the new truck, but we realize the financial constraints the town has, and a new truck is about 150, all equipped, and we weren't that optimistic that we would get that. That's one new truck.
right, so you would rather, and I'm not saying you'd get a used truck, but you would rather get these 2 used ones instead of 1 new one.
To serve the town better, we would rather have 2 used trucks than get rid of some of the ones that keep conking out versus still having ones that conk out as rapidly and get 1 new truck. We just feel it serves the town better in snow plowing to get 2 used ones.
Okay, and I think we just have to trust the DPW director on this.
Yeah.
We do have to worry about the sanders, and we could always come back once we go through this and decide to buy 1 brand new sander for $35,000 to put on a truck, and then he has to guinea rig the other one. But the question is, do we want to buy this $90,000 item? Jay?
Just to be clear, I'm not advocating buying new trucks with new sander bodies. It's just that my experience in the past 4 years, one guaranteed recurring theme, both at budget committee meetings and during the winter, has been failure of the sander body drive system. And I'm just a little concerned that we're taking one of those sander bodies and putting on a new used vehicle, whatever you want to call it. And I would just be I just have a much better feeling about it if I knew that, the hydraulic systems work very well and they last much better. The pony motor system is antiquated. You can't replace it unless you go on eBay, I guess. So, it's like buying a new car and taking the used tires off of the old one and putting it on the new car.
All right, well, I think that's a decision we have to make.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
At this point, if next year he comes to us and says, I need 2 new sanders for $70,000, then we need to look at that and put it on our new trucks. But I think right now, our DPW director is telling us that this would be the best bang for our buck. Is that right, Rick?
Yes, it is. And it's just based on the experience that we've been having, we think it's the best way to spend the money that we think we'd be able to get. There's lots and lots of needs. We understand that, but there's not that much money. So we think this is the way to go.
Okay. So go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion, if that's okay.
Yep, that's perfect.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we use $90,000 to buy the DPW 2 used plow and attachments out of the capital reserve fund.
Which comes to a total of $90,000. Is that correct?
$90,000. Yeah.
Second.
Rick, is that number correct? 90,000?
Yeah. Yes, it is. That's our estimate.
Okay, so I have a motion to use 90,000 out of the reserve capital account for 2 DPW used plow and attachments. And I have a second by Councilor Vieira. Discussion, Councilor Janick?
So is this something we can actually purchase now?
Yeah.
Given it's snowing every other day and we're already struggling with the plowing?
I believe we can, but we'll ask Mike, but I believe we can.
We'll check with Ryder Truck up in Providence to see what they have up there.
Okay. All right, so any other discussion? Councilor Cook? Councilor Cook, yes or no? Donna, do you hear me?
Donna.
Donna. Somehow Donna left us.
Maybe you can move to the next one?
No,
There she is.
It froze up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm voting on your motion. Yes. or
Welcome
no?
to North Tiverton.
Yeah, it's yes.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Vieira,
Yes.
Counselor Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Janick,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that's 90,000. So next, what I want to do is let's go to the fire department. And let's look at
Good
this.
night. Denise,
Wait,
can
can
we?
we do the
can we back-
forklift?
Well, I think, why don't we, it's up to you. We can definitely do the forklift, but I just wanted to make sure we hit everybody's priority before we spend more money on another department.
Do the
Okay,
number ones by department.
Right, does that sound fair? So,
Yeah.
because I don't want the police chief to say you spent it on a forklift and didn't, so, or the fire chief. So as far as I have wrote, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, the Tiverton Fire Department rescue truck was the chief's #1 priority. I talked to Denise, and she said that if we do a 10-year, and this is what she told me, past practice is the ambulances, we do a 5-year, but for the fire trucks, we do a 10-year.
Yep.
So she advised the 10-year would be the most cost efficient, and she said that that would be $100,000.
Right.
Now, if we need to adjust that figure a little, we can come back to it. Once we tell her we want to do this, she'll come back with exactly the cost. But if we do the rescue truck for $100,000 a year for 10 years, and keep in mind, every year we can take from the capital or whatever we have in reserve. We
But
could.
Denise, you're saying rescue truck? I think you mean fire
Do
truck.
you mean
Yeah.
fire truck or
I'm really
rescue
sorry,
truck?
guys, fire
No
truck.
problem.
I have this problem with reading these lines.
No, I just said that for the folks at home.
Yeah, I'm just getting old and I can't read as
This
well.
fire truck, the rescue truck was purchased.
Right, so the fire truck.
There
So
you go.
that would be $100,000 purchase for this year. And we'll just make sure we can do this. But I think if we put it on this budget, that we're spending 100,000 for this 900,000 truck and we're taking it for capital reserve, that would be correct. Any discussion regarding the fire truck? Donna?
Well, the $100,000 is to start something that hasn't been approved, which is the FTR and doing time payments. I don't know if that's really kosher to take
Well, that's why
$100,000.
That's why I said we put it on the budget to be voted on, but say that we're taking it from that account. So
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
all right.
So that
Okay.
will be present on there and there'll be a note with our revenue and
Right. There'll
not
be
accounting, but I know that
$100,000
can be
against
fixed that way.
coming from Municipal Capital.
Right, so that people are approving buying it and that 100,000. Is that clear, Donna?
Yeah,
So
thank
we'll
you.
be on the budget. Anybody else want to say anything about this? Bill?
so 100,000 out of the 400,000, that sure eats up a lot of the 400,000, number one. Especially when Fall River has 3 of them on call. You know, definitely something to look forward to in the future, in my opinion. But the, you know, that big truck, I don't know that we need that right now, but that's my opinion.
I'd just like to say that this is not a ladder truck. This is a little different. And this is a replacement of a present truck, right, Chris? This can be used.
There is a need for a pumper, definitely. So this does have a ladder on it, but it is not a ladder truck.
Right. So this is a replacement fire truck that we'll be using daily. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do need a new pumper, at least.
And this includes that?
It does include, this would be a pumper with a ladder. It does carry water, it carries all the equipment that a normal pumper carries. Unlike a ladder truck that just carries the ladder. This has everything else with it. So it is a pumper with a ladder on it.
This is an all-purpose truck, though. This will
Right.
be used daily for when we
Carries
go out.
1,500 gallons of water, carries all the equipment, carries the hydraulics, carries everything else that you would have on a normal pumper truck.
Right. So this is very different than just purchasing a ladder truck.
Right, a ladder truck has nothing. It only has a ladder.
And keep in mind, we've been having problems with our fire trucks. And we need to purchase a fire truck. So this would be getting a ladder on a regular fire truck.
Correct.
Okay, Jay?
And there's been an awful lot of discussion about this. And just to be clear, this thing, what we would be getting would be able to be parked in any of our fire stations.
Yes.
It does not require any other special training. Any of our current firefighters that can drive a pumper can drive this. And as I've said many times, as our buildings get bigger and taller in this town, there's going to become more and more of a need for something like this, if for no other reason than the safety of our firemen. And relying on other communities, that's not a sound method.
But this is a replacement truck also. It's not extra. This is a replacement truck to replace our old truck that we have to repair.
Correct.
Mike?
Two things, and I just lost sight of one of them, or three things. One is I just want to echo what Jay said, is that while I appreciate that Fall River may have 3 of these, we're not part of Fall River. Fall River is actually in another state. And we cannot continuously rely on mutual aid because every other community has their priorities. And if, God forbid, there were multiple events going on in this town where we needed a truck and they were not available, that means, A, we're putting our staff at risk and we're putting potentially residents at risk. So I think it's important that we recognize that. Mutual aid is really only intended for when you absolutely need it. So you have a, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but you have a 10-alarm fire that you absolutely need to call in other resources, not for your daily or your more routine, if you will, fire department needs. And second, as Denise said, this is a replacement of something, and it actually gives us more bang for our buck, so to speak, because it is that multi-use vehicle. And third, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve using $100,000 of the capital reserve for the purchase of this new, what's the name of it, Chris? Is there a special name? I'm sorry?
Like a Quint
fire truck.
Quint fire truck.
Quint fire truck to be purchased and paid over a 10-year period at the cost of approximately $100,000 per year, provided that there is approval in the FTR.
I'm going to ask for a second and then I will.
Second it.
Okay, and now I'll have discussion. Donna, I know you had.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I've never even seen a picture of it.
I'll find you one.
All over Facebook.
I went online and I found one actually the other day.
Well, we could get Bruce to send us, a sales brochure.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was kind of bizarre that I was being asked to buy something and I didn't even know what it looked like.
Well, I think we can show
There are
you.
a number of different Quints out there. They've actually looked at 4 or 5 of them. So
I can't remember the name of it either.
QUINT, it's a acronym, I guess.
There are a number of different manufacturers that they've looked at.
Right, and I don't know how the rest of you feel, but if they're looking at different ones, it's up to the fire chief and the experts to pick the one that will best.
Well, ultimately, we would probably go out to bid. There would be a bid process that we would have to follow, and then you would get all the information as we went through that process.
I just sent a link
item that we can just buy off the shelf.
I just sent a link to Chris. So Chris, because I don't think I can share, but it's a picture of one.
Share.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Let me see if I can share this.
All panels.
Deb's sharing it.
Oh,
I don't know.
Deb's got it on speed dial.
Now I do want to say.
There you go.
That's a Quint.
There it is.
And we have to go to Palm Beach and get it?
I'll do it.
Want to go?
One question I had, would this be new or used?
No,
No,
New, good.
And you don't need an extra people.
No.
to-
no,
No.
you don't.
now, like, I know it's a hunk, it's 100,000, but we just spent 90,000. Like, we're being pretty equal here. We just gave the
Right.
DPW 90,000. And
Yeah,
like I said, once we got to the 400, if we want to buy a few things and put it in the budget, like a forklift or whatever, our capital will be very small. So,
The Lucas chest compression.
yes, because I'm
Yes.
going to go
Buy
back to
that
that.
too.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
back to that.
Yeah.
Safety
But what
stuff.
I'm saying
Um,
is the big items we should spend this way.
Yeah, no, I understand. I also just want to say that when we have issues with our fire engines, they have to have a certified fire engine mechanic, and they're really, really expensive. And because I think they're like $100 to $200 an hour to work on it, and they have to take them to Cranston or something. So they're out of service for a while too.
So we
So-
do the same thing. We use certified mechanics to do the things that they're required to have certified mechanics for.
Right,
So there are some general maintenance, like you can change the oil, can change some tires and things like that. But
correct.
there are specific issues that we do need certified mechanics for.
Okay, so I have a vote, I have a motion, and I have a second.
Yep.
If there's no further discussion, I'll vote on this. Any further discussion? Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Vieira,
No.
Counselor Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Janick,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. Now we're gonna get a little bit more complicated, and I want all of your opinions on this. The police department. Now, what I understood is, Chief Jones' main priority was the cruises. Does everyone agree with me?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Now, I do not want to buy 3 cruisers, and I'm not sure I want to buy SUVs. But I think that at least one is taken out, and we are going to pursue the grant and the matching funds. So that would leave us with 2. Is that correct, everyone?
Yes.
I believe so. Good.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Madam President? Chris, you might not know this, but I'm wondering if if we decide to purchase one or more through this process, and he's using the grant, will our purchase of this one or more count for the match?
That's a good question. I think it depends on timing.
Okay.
So it could be that you do that, but we don't buy it this particular year. We buy it when we buy the other ones. So you bundle it at the same time to make it as the match.
Yeah.
If you're to buy it now and then wait 4 months and then purchase, I don't think it would qualify.
Okay.
But we could ask the grantor agency, whether or not that would qualify, but my gut tells me no, that it has to be done simultaneously at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, so 3, is that 165?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's 55 apiece
That's 55 apiece.
For an SUV.
for an SUV.
What we could do is say, Chief Jones will give you $100,000, and you can buy the 2 SUV. Anyone want to talk about SUVs? I know Council Vieira does.
So I just don't know that we're in the financial situation to start a fleet of SUVs. And I think I mentioned that to the chief. I talked to the town administrator last night about getting me some figures about cruises, because we never really broached that subject. If a cruiser goes for $35,000 each, the chief has what, $64,000 in his grant. We need to match it, what, 35% maybe of that. What I was thinking, and this is way out there, 35 times 3 equals about 100,000. Minus is 64, that's about 45,000. So we could reduce this from 165 to 45,000, and he could have 3 cruisers. Maybe give 2 of the cruisers to the administrative, and that kind of rectifies a lot of his situations, but this is what I'm thinking outside the box.
Right now, it looks like, now the Ford Explorers, how many do we have? It looks like
Wait,
as of 2020, we had 2.
did he give you a, I think there's
Oh,
3.
no, 3.
Yeah, but you gave us a list and I don't have it handy.
I have the list, but
I believe it's 3.
it is 3, but it says cruiser report February 2020. I think this was given to me last year. And last year we had 3. We have a 2018. We have 3 2018s, which would make sense because that was one from the grant. And last year we didn't buy any, correct? So I think we have.
Yeah, he bought 3 out of a year, let's say.
Right, so there's 3. Right now we have 3. We have 3 SUVs, which are on the road.
Yep.
I mean, it is a thought. Do we need more SUVs or is it more cost efficient to buy cars? Does anyone want to say anything?
I really prefer that we use SUVs. I think they're transporting a lot of equipment. They need the space for it. I think that they last longer. And that's where I would recommend, is that we stick with the SUVs.
Anyone else? Jay?
Well, cost of ownership, obviously. Well, I'm not sure how it is with police vehicles, but anybody that buys cars and SUVs knows that SUVs get better gas mileage or don't get as good a gas mileage. They probably cost a little bit more to keep operating. However, as Deb said, I don't know about the rest of you, but take a look at one of our SUVs sometime the next time you see one. They've got these things packed with equipment. And if they got to transport anybody, a car is a little bit tight. A car is just pretty much a family car that has been turned into a police vehicle. The only hesitation I have is, as Chief Jones mentioned, he would rather have all the SUVs be built by the same manufacturer instead of having a mix to eliminate the difficulties of transferring, the internal components like the screens and radios and any of that from one vehicle to another, like if you buy a new one, which if you go to cars, then you're going to have 2 different systems. I don't know how do we alleviate that, but that's just a thought.
Donna, do you have, go ahead, Donna.
I think Bill's idea is very good. I think it's very cognizant of the monies and taxpayers' monies to try to get what the police force needs at a reasonable price to be able to do their job. I'm in favor of Bill's plan.
Well
thought out.
So Bill's plan is to allocate 45,000 and have him use the grant to buy 2 police cars. Is that correct? Go ahead, Bill.
So I don't know how police cars are purchased. I spoke to the administrator last night. I was just pricing charges. I'm under the impression we're not buying charges anymore. They're buying Impalas now. I don't know how much a cruiser costs. It can't be anywhere close to 55. I thought maybe about 35. So you can buy 3 cruisers, quite possibly for 100,000. He has a grant for $64,000. So if we match 45, 50,000 to that, you could buy 3 cruisers maybe give 2 of the cruisers to the administrators who are looking for two vehicles. I mean, in regards to Jay's point, we're a small town, Tiverton. You need an SUV, they call for backup anyways. They're gonna be wherever you need in 5 minutes with an SUV if you need it. Yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't buy SUVs in the future. It's great to have as a backup. I'm just saying until we start to recognize some funds from Twin River and the state, if we need 3 vehicles, this is the priority. Maybe we invest in a couple of cars as opposed to SUVs. That's just my opinion.
Councilor Burke?
Councilor Janick, you had made a comment that you think that SUVs last longer than the cars. I'm not sure where that comes from.
Personal use, but I believe that the chief also had said that.
Okay.
But my own personal use, our SUVs are lasting longer.
Okay.
With higher mileage.
Yeah, I mean, I have never owned an SUV, and our cars have generally lasted 10, 20 years sometimes. In fact, Cena's last car lasted 20 years. So that's why I asked that question. And I know police vehicles are different. You can't, match them one-to-one to a personal vehicle.
Right.
The other pieces, and I appreciate, Bill, your suggestions. I just don't know that we have enough information on the cost of a car version of a police vehicle to really make that judgment. So I'd almost want to withhold that until we can get that cost, because there's a lot more to creating a police vehicle than there is to a personal vehicle. So that's an important piece for me. And then, there was another piece that I wanted to say, but again, I forgot it as I was talking.
Is Chief Jones available right now? I thought he was
coming. I just sent him the link. He's trying to get in.
All right, because I thought he was coming. Because I really would like to make a decision on this, to tell you.
No, I get it.
I mean, bottom line, guys, we could give him a set amount of money and say, this is what we want to spend on vehicles, and you decide how you want to do that. Mike?
Does he have to come to us and ask for permission before he purchases them, though?
He would, I would think.
Yeah, it's a big process, yeah. Like we give him the money and then he decides what to do. Mike?
Yeah, so, and the chief may be able to answer this. This is the other piece, going back to what Councilor Edwards said. If he bought the same model, did I get that right?
Yeah.
Brand. So if you bought Ford cars, he has Ford SUVs. If you bought Ford cars, is there enough interchangeability between the Ford cars and the Ford SUVs to alleviate the concern that Councilor Edwards mentioned about lack of interchangeability of parts?
Well, I don't think, I don't know if that's even viable.
Well, what I was talking about, if you look at a police car, the first thing is there's a big screen to separate the passengers from the front. Those would certainly not be interchangeable between a car and an SUV, and most probably not between one brand of SUV and another. And I think we ran into this before a few years ago. Also, things like lighting systems, roof, all that stuff that gets shoehorned into the dash. No. And Chief Jones is with us, and he can make more of that point.
Welcome, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. The discussion right now is whether the council wants to buy Explorers or if they want to buy cars. And I don't know if you've been paying attention. You probably haven't. We have decided to take $400,000 out of the capital account that we have reserved and pretty much distribute it equally right now with the top priorities of each administrator, department heads. So I believe that your top priority was the cruises.
That's correct.
Okay, and we know that I think you can get a $64,000 grant
Correct.
So we, and the question was whether or not if we bought cars, would that match? Would that count as our match for your grant?
Correct. So it's actually $61,500 is the 35% match. So I believe quick math would be we'd expend $130,000 ish to get the 61,000, which is identical to what we did, Madam President, the last time to buy the 3 cruisers and the senior bus. So,
Right,
and
but
I know
we'd have to spend, I'm confused.
so we'd have to allocate. So we'd have to allocate $130,000.
Would that be part of the grant also?
No.
Correct. No, the grant would give us back 60,000. So all in, it would be
191.5.
correct, sir. So, and I know one of the other counselors was mentioning the issue between SUVs and Dodge Chargers. So currently, we switched over to the SUVs, and the price for the both of them, because we get a municipal rate because they're police rated vehicles, is essentially the same. There's 2 issues that were brought up, and I know you were speaking about it. The first one being is the interchangeability of the parts. An average police vehicle, whether it be a Ford or a Dodge, is about $30,000 stripped. We would put in anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 to put a light bar into it, to put a cage into it, to put striping on it, a radio. All of that equipment, unfortunately, is not interchangeable with our current fleet. And that's kind of the rub when it comes to these automakers, especially with police vehicles. They know that. It literally changes year from year. A 2019 setup will not fit a 2020 setup. So we got to buy everything all brand new. The second issue is availability, because these vehicles are in such high demand. We might not see, if you agree to say, all right, Chief, we want you to buy Chargers. I might not see a Charger until 2022, which is what happened with the Fords, because we got the leftovers that were on the lot. They were 2018s, but they were brand new, which is why we were able to score them up. So I can promise you that I will remain open to buying whatever police vehicles are available, but we shouldn't lock in to any one purchase, because I could get a 2019 Dodge Charger cheaper than I could get a 2021 Ford SUV. And I can promise you, I'll take whatever I can get at this point.
So my idea of giving you a set amount of money and
Is
then
great.
you go
Is
and
great.
buy what you need to buy with that set amount of money. But
Correct.
of course you have to come back to us at some point before you buy it.
Of course, because all of these vehicles are on the master price agreement. So this would be, I'd request during an agenda request through the administrator, I would tell you exactly what I'm going to buy, how I'm going to buy it, right down to the striping on the car.
But I don't want to buy, I want to buy 3 total. So the grant would buy 1 or more than 1.
Correct.
Well, not if you don't have the money.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just,
go ahead, Mike.
Chief, just so I'm a little unclear, so let me ask it this way. If we, out of total funds, we're talking about the leftover capital right now, if we allocated $100,000 to you, does that give you enough for the match to allow you to buy 3?
It doesn't.
130.
Can I have the chief answer the question?
Patrick, answer the question.
So we get 35% of whatever allocation you allocate. So let's do it.
Okay. Okay.
So if you give me $100,000, I will get $35,000 back.
Okay. Thank you.
So that'll do it. No,
because he's saying it's going to cost 165.
Well, then we only buy 2 cars. Or now would that also count if we decided to buy the animal control vehicle?
Any vehicle that you decide to buy.
So if we decided to buy the 2 SUVs or 2 cars and the animal control vehicle, so it's any car we buy, guys.
It's
So-
any purchase, correct. The other thing I want to remind you of too, and I know we spoke about this before, is you have $40,000 in detail money that
No, we
the
don't.
vehicles raise. Okay,
No, we don't, Patrick. You missed that whole conversation.
okay.
The treasurer said we do not have that available to us anymore. That goes right into the general fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with due respect to the treasurer, I would plea that that's something that we should look at going forward. So because we'll continue to make that money. And to your point, Madam President, I would much rather see the police vehicles that are going to be on the road with the police officers responding to the emergencies, because if we can continue that discussion with the detail money, the animal control officer doesn't need a $50,000 vehicle. The police officers do. I could probably look around and find a non-police rated pickup truck for $15,000 to $20,000 that will serve her purposes for the next 10 years. So I would much rather, if we're going to utilize your buying power, let's get the emergency response vehicles first, and then the administrative vehicles and or the animal control vehicle second.
All right. Well, the bottom line, Patrick, is I don't want to spend $165,000 on these purchases. I would give you $100,000, but but that puts the grant in jeopardy. I understand.
Right. What
it would only give us 35 back.
Go ahead, Bill.
It doesn't put the grant in jeopardy. It puts the amount back in jeopardy.
So then that would give you 135 to spend.
So how does the grant, if we gave the chief $130,000 to buy 3 vehicles, what do we get reimbursed the 61.5?
No.
No.
From the grant?
We get reimbursed 45.5 on 130. Right, Chief?
Correct.
And then what do we do with that?
So just whatever the amount that he has to use, multiply that by 35%, and that's what the grant's going to give us back. So you escalate it by that amount.
So if we give him 100,000,
then it's 135,000 total.
okay, and then go out and buy whatever you need.
So you have to, and if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt. You have to look at the grant like a rebate.
Right.
So you have to allocate 130,000 to get back, as the vice president said, 45.5. You have to allocate, because they are going to look when I submit to the for the grant. They're going to see it's a reimbursable grant. So we have to front the money, knowing that it's coming back to us.
Right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if we front you 100, then what do we get from the grant?
35.
Okay, so then that gives you 135.
No, it's 100. 35 goes back to the general fund, and then 65 is what we've basically given them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you send in a rebate coupon and you get it back. You didn't buy the car with that rebate coupon.
But then it goes into the general fund, guys, and that defeats the whole purpose of this.
So it goes into the general fund, but does it have to?
So could it go to the municipal capital account?
That's what I'm gonna, could it go to that capital account?
It should go back into the capital fund.
Because that's where it came from.
How could we make that work, though? Legally?
Yeah, I don't think we have a mechanism for that, do we?
No.
So does the grantor care where the money comes from, Chief?
It does not. They
So-
look at it as a municipal backed fund or purchase. They don't care about the line item.
As long as we put that money back where we got it from, they'll be fine with it?
As long as we allocate the money, once they give us back the money, we can just utilize it. I'm sure that they'll ask that it'll come back to that you bought police vehicles with it if you're telling us you're buying police vehicles. So whatever fund we take the money from to purchase the police vehicles, logic would follow that it gets replaced in that account.
So it's kind of like the school capital expenditures. We spend it and we get 30% back. It's almost like the same thing.
I know, but does the charter say it has to go into the general fund?
Well, it depends on
the charter says that pretty much that money received
From taxation.
outside of taxation, let's put it that way, must be applied to the general fund. But the general fund is a big bucket with many parts. So I don't see why you could not put it into the capital part of the general fund.
Right, because this, I think it's opposite what you said. Taxation has to go into the general fund.
No, if you get money from the state, if you get money from, like what happened with the senior center with their fees, they had to go into the general fund.
Okay, I have a question. When we got the grant for the buses, the senior bus, where did that grant money go? Into the general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, could we put a resolution that say any grant money for what we've expended goes back into the account that we've expended from?
I was gonna ask that, or could we just vote to transfer it from the general fund? I don't know if we can do that, to transfer it to the capital from the general fund.
Well, the town council approves all transfers.
Well, we're paying out money from a restricted account, so does that money that we get back go back into that restricted account? That's the question.
Sounds like a Mike question.
That's a Mike Marcello question. You're right.
It is, but it's also going to be the grant language in the grant documents as well. If the grant documents provide that you can put the money back from where it came from, it won't matter. Because all you're doing is using the money and they're replacing it.
Right.
Okay, so we're back at what do we want to allocate for cars, really, right? Is that the major question?
So the more we spend, in a way, the more we'll get back. So if we gave him the 165, Mike or Chris, would we get $57,750 back? If we gave the chief the 165,000, 35% would be 57,750.
It would be the price of one car, one vehicle.
So we would get back $57,750, which is up to the 61.5.
So we'd be paying for 3 and then getting the money back for the third one. So we'd be actually spending from the capital fund for 2.
Buy 2, get 1 free.
Yes, that's what we
I like that.
Now keep in mind if you do that, that leaves us $55,000 more from the 400,000. Which is okay. I mean, like I said, we're buying major purchases.
And that's exactly what happened the last time when we got the 3 cruises, which gave us the ability to buy the senior bus. That scenario is exactly what happened.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, does anyone want to make a motion to spend 165,000? Bill?
I ask, what are the other items that we may have considered?
The other items I want to do is I want to do the Harbormaster trailer. I want to do the waterfront infrastructure. And
the Lucas.
The Lucas.
Do the Lucas.
2 or 1, Denise?
What?
2 or 1?
1.
Okay.
So I would also suggest that we have to consider, and the chief's on for this, based on his other feedback item, at least one of these 3, the Surface Pros, the server redundancy, and the public safety communications system study.
But like I said, we can spend the 400,000 and then we can put a couple of capitals into the regular budget.
I understand that.
So we can do that also.
I understand that. I'm seeing those as a little higher priority, possibly for this money myself. That's all.
So say what you're saying, Mike. I'm sorry.
The Surface Pro laptop replacements, the server redundancy, and the communication study, which is $5,000. The other two are $30,000 and $20,000. I'm sorry?
So what does that come out to?
Total, it's 55, and I'm not suggesting all of that. I'm suggesting, I'd really like, again, to hear if we were to add any of these to this capital money now, Chief, which would be the most important?
So, thank you, sir. A couple things, if I could go through. There was also the telephone recording system, which was, I believe, the 7,300.
You're right. That's the one I was thinking of, actually. Thank you. Yeah.
So, and I could probably help with a couple of these items. So I know, if you recall, in my operating budget, I increased the education account by $8,000 to accommodate the IBPO promotional testing. So as fate would have it, I was able to buy them out of this year's budget. So we could reduce my education request back to level funding. So that would pay for the capital request of the telephones. I also was able to get the public safety radio study for free. So Motorola said that they'd be able to do that for us for free. So we can take that one right off the table.
The public safety communication study?
Correct. So Motorola is willing to do that for the town, for all agencies, including the fire department, for nothing.
Okay. So what does that leave us for you?
50.
So I'm also working with the administrator. If I had to prioritize the last two, the Surface Pros and the IT redundancy, definitely the IT redundancy would be the priority now. Given the fact that, and I know the administrator can speak to this too, we're looking at basically in weeks, if not a few months, definitely pre-summer, a major shift in the state for our CAD or our computer-aided dispatch and our record keeping system to go statewide. So, and given the issues that we've had and that you've already invested in, I'd go that route. Let's keep going with that. And then as far as the Surface Pros, I'm hopeful that once, hopefully knocking on wood, we can get past COVID and our grant and with the change of administration on the federal level, that our grants start flowing back into the town, because we're 4 years behind. I could definitely work with the administrator and supplement that kind of stuff when it comes to other IT equipment. So I would request that you focus on the IT infrastructure capital request.
Is that your law enforcement block grant money?
That's correct. The JAG burn. Correct.
Yeah.
So what would that, so
Can I just a quick question? How much have we been negatively affected by the PREA penalties that the state has incurred?
10%.
Conservatively, about 50,000
over the course of
4 years.
4 years.
We average between $8,000 and $11,000 a year.
Okay.
okay, so you're talking about the $20,000 line item?
Yes, ma'am.
The server redundancy and RMS.
And the recording system.
Oh, you'd want both of those?
Correct. And for the recording system, I would offer to reduce my operating expense in the education account back to level funding, because it was increased to $8,000. But I'll be able to purchase those tests out of this year's operating fund in education.
Okay.
That becomes a wash.
Okay, so that would come to 27,304.
That is correct.
And Denise, can I make a comment here? Even though this is under the police department's capital heading, let's say, it serves more than just them.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
Well, I guess I just still like to have a conversation about what are the various things that, we're looking at. We've talked about two, perhaps three.
I forgot about one thing. I would really like to buy the town farm security system, since that's going to be up and running next year and we need that. So
absolutely.
So that would be my next priority, I think.
I think we're running out of money, though.
No, if we take out what the chief just said, we have 27,000 left.
And you had also talked about some other things. I was just throwing other possibilities on the table. You had talked about the trailer.
Trailer
And the dock.
and the dock.
Just put that as a single capital request on our budget. And that would be, our capital request would be like 18,000, and I don't think anyone would complain about that.
18.5.
Yeah. I mean, we could take a little, well, some of this and move it around, but then there's also the Zoll, not the Zoll.
No, the Lucas chest.
Yeah.
And the town farm security.
Yeah.
And the
So I
Lucas
think
chest, you know, last year, the council approved 2, if I remember right. The budget committee took it down to 1.
Yeah.
We didn't like it, but we did it.
So it's 30,000 for 2, correct?
30, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're about 15 a piece.
They're
So
not cheap.
let me just go back to the municipal capital, right? Just out of those funds, we have 90 for the snow trucks, right?
Right.
We have 100 for first payment on the fire,
Fire.
right? We've got 100, and I'm just gonna say 165 for police, just for a placeholder, right?
Yep. Oh, maybe my math's wrong. That comes out to 355.
Correct.
355.
My math wasn't wrong. It's 45,000 we have left from what we decided to take out of municipal capital.
Then one of the trailers, 8,500, the dock is another 10. And then you said 16 for the security system.
Yeah.
And then you were looking at 30 for the Lucas chest protector, right?
That's if we buy 2.
That's for 2.
355, 3.
I thought we said we're gonna do 1.
5, 10.
I did want to do 1, but
That comes to 419. If you did both.
Is that including the recording system and the
No,
server?
I would say you would put the recording system would come out of it. He said the budget, right, under the state educated mandate, he would reduce that down so he could pay.
right, but you still have to put it in capital.
Right, it's still a capital
You have to put it in
expense.
capital.
And then
Server redundancy.
the server redundancy would stay in capital. And then what I don't know, what do you do with the animal control vehicle and the admin vehicles?
You don't buy them.
All right. So, and then do we do anything with the DPW 10-wheeler and tag along? Do they stay in, or the forklift? You didn't talk about those either.
Well, no, because I was doing priorities, guys.
No, I know what you were taking on the municipal capital. What I was asking is, what would you want to put anything in for the tax budget for next year?
Right.
Because you are taking some of the stuff out of general capital, the Harbormaster, the dock, and the
Right. Right, which I think we should share the wealth a little.
No, I get that. And don't forget, some of these big numbers down below in capital come out, like that 457, the 150 for those I just put in so you would know where to look for those accounts.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So those numbers do reduce as well too. But you can go at one Lucas chest protector too. It'll bring it down to 404,500.
Right.
Yeah, you know what, guys, we're forgetting. I'm trying to find it, the recycle center.
Well, that's down below. That's in this lower
600,000.
But that should
Well, the recycling center is something that is not going to go away.
No, it's not.
It's here to stay. It's 2 years away. And come hell or high water, it has to be done.
Well, we might have to just put that in our capital.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think we should allocate the whole 600,000. And
No,
like,
no, no, that's true. That, you
and
know,
like I've said before, I think we really need to look at these infrastructure accounts and see if we can subtract any of this recycling cost out of there. And that would take Rick and whoever to look at this and say, well, that's 600,000. How much is this is for infrastructure? And can we take it out of our infrastructure?
so if I remember right, the last time we did this, we were thinking about taking 150,000 worth of capital
Right.
out of the infrastructure account.
Right,
So that brings that 600 down to 450.
right.
And now if you, you know, I don't know if there's anything else, but if you split that in two, that's 225 a year.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
But didn't the cost of this thing, I seem to recall this thing, well, if we not recall, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be more than that.
So, but we stripped this thing down to bare bones where it was just gravel pads. It was just gravel road. It was, you know, there wasn't a lot of infrastructure there to be put in. So it was basically clearing the land, getting set up so that we could, you know, put the bins in areas where people could drive through and get out. So, and there would be some fencing. I'm assuming that we would have to fence the area. So
That's
it was pretty bare bones, if I remember right.
Well, that's why I wanted to have this discussion, take 400 out of all of this and then say, well, what else do we want?
Right.
But we'd have to put that in.
No doubt.
So we'd have to put that in and
So we just got through talking to Stu about, do we put 10 grand in for the building down at Town Farm? Do we?
right.
Can we not put the building at Town Farm in until, well, first we got to find out, it's got to be thoroughly inspected by somebody. And a determination has to be made. Is it worth throwing good money after bad at this building? And if it isn't, and we decide, okay, but it's a liability and it needs to be removed, that could be done by the town. We don't have to hire anybody to do that. We've got everything we need.
Yeah, I would like to hold off on that and
Okay.
see if we can figure that out as the year goes on and maybe throw, like what we did one year is we started watching our funds and we started to see what we were going to have left over for June. And we started spending that on projects we needed to spend it on. So
Right.
that we wouldn't put this taxable income back into the general fund and we'd spend it on projects. So
Right.
we still need to do that also. Because keep in mind, the council contingency, we've spent 1% of that, guys. We have a lot of money in there. And I think we need to use it for some of the projects we're talking about.
We do.
So
As they arise.
as they rise, but I mean, we already have a few we can think of. So, all right, so the question is, how are we gonna, let's just spend the rest of the 400 and then go from there. How's that?
I thought we had it spent.
No, we had ideas.
We had ideas. So Chris, what were you just adding up?
So I added 90 for the snow trucks, 100 for fire for the first payment. I had 165 for police.
That comes to 355.
Right. Then I had 8,500 for the trailer,
Okay,
10,000 for the dock, 16,000 for the security at Town Farm. And then I had 30,000 for the chest protectors, but that's, like I said, that's both of them. And that came to 419,
okay.
500.
Which is a little over the 400, but if we are able to put that 61, whatever from the grant
Right,
back in there,
You've made it back up.
we've made it back up.
yeah. So we could do all of those items right now for 419. And then we look at what we have remaining. We didn't do Town Farm security, so we could just put that as a regular capital.
No,
request.
that's in there. That's in there.
It's in there, Denise.
So what I'm really looking at is our big expenditure would be 225 we put in as a capital request.
Well, then you've got a couple of other ones. You've got
Yeah, we got a couple of others we need, but that, I mean, really realistically, guys, that's not we're doing well.
No, that's good.
We're doing well. We spent money
so.
that we have. And if we put, say, even if we put another 400 in a capital request, that's not a bad capital request.
So,
So going back that on page 2, I thought Rick might have talked about this, and maybe it's not a priority. The stormwater drainage infrastructure, open parentheses, non-road, $75,000. He said that at some point, this is gonna be a DEM regulation issue.
But he didn't carry that 75 over.
15,000.
He put 15,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
15,000, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, and I'm happy to speak on that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
but what I want to do right now, why don't we decide on how, if we're going to spend that 419, and then let's look at what we have left and put that as capital request. Does that sound good, guys?
can I ask just a question to make sure I have my numbers right? Because I'm coming out to a little higher number and maybe I have too many things. Chris, here's what I have and tell me in it. So we have the 90 and the 100 that we already talked about for the,
We voted on it.
then the police vehicles 165.
Yep.
The town farm security 16, the trailer 85,
Yep, 8,500.
the dock 10,
Yep,
the one Lucas 15,
that would be 15, so that would bring it to 404,500.
then the server 20,000 and the recording 7,304.
So my understanding is the 7,304 was gonna be funded by reducing or putting.
No,
it
but
into
it's
his
a
budget
capital.
in his
Well, we
operating
still have to pull it out. It's a capital expense, so we have to
Can't take
account
from the
for it.
general fund and buy capital.
He's just saying he's saving us 7,300, whatever,
Right.
by flatlining his operational account, but it's a capital
No,
expense.
it is, but all I was trying to do is identify the items that are gonna be paid for out of the municipal capital fund.
Right, I understand that, but if we don't pay for it out of the fund, then we have to put it on the docket.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's why I didn't want to include it with those,
Okay,
because those other ones don't need to be included. If like the trailer you can buy now, the dock you can do now, the security system you can do now, you don't even have to put it on the docket.
Right.
right.
The only ones
You
that
don't
are
have to
gonna
put
be on the
anything on the
docket are the
docket
fire
with the fire
truck.
truck.
Right,
So, but if I backed out the 7,304, it comes out to 424,500 for me.
Well, we never included those in Chris's list of, when you
That's what I'm
added
trying to
those things
check.
up, those weren't in there, Mike.
I didn't add the 20 and the 7,300.
Oh, not the 20 either, okay.
Yeah,
So
so
if I
he
back,
just had 6,
so I back
like
out the
7
20,
items.
if I back out the 20, it comes out to 404,500.
Yeah.
I need
With-
good numbers. Let's talk about it.
With one Lucas chest compressor, Chris's list comes up to 404,500.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, that's the difference.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So that is close to 400 and I'm happy with that. So I need a motion for all those items. I need
So
Okay.
65.
go ahead.
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion for the DPW, $90,000 for
I already
2
have
cars.
I already have the DPW and the fire.
Okay, police, $165,000 for cars.
Mhm.
For the harbor, for the trailer and the dock, 18,500. For town farm security, 16,000. And for one Lucas chest compressor, 15,000, which gives us a total of $404,500.
Well, yeah, but back off the 190 because we already have that.
What 190?
The 90 for DPW and the 100 for fire. We
Yeah,
already
she just
have.
wants,
Oh, well, if you do the math, then what's that number going to be?
I'll get it. Because I have a running list.
You see what I'm saying?
229,500.
What is it?
229,500.
What he said.
229,500.
Okay, so that's,
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, so that is spending 404,500 from the.
hang on, Denise, hang on.
in municipal capital.
I'm sorry, I did something wrong here.
Okay,
Jay, you're gonna have to fix it. I forgot to take out the second chest protector. So 214,500.
so
Okay.
today's motion is 214,500.
Correct.
And
Thank you,
that,
Mike.
and that will take from capital reserve 404,500.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Mike,
Lost.
do I have a discussion?
Chris is shaking his head, so
I'm
no.
I'm just confused what the 214,400 represents.
so
214,
165,000 for the 3 police vehicles,
yeah,
16,000 for the town farm security,
okay,
8,500 for the trailer for the harbor,
yeah,
10,000 for the dock.
yeah.
1 Lucas at 15,000. And that's it.
Are you adding, Chris?
Yeah, but I don't, so what's the distinction between the 214 and plus I know the fire needs because the snow vehicles, the 90 grand, why wouldn't that be added to it?
We already approved those.
We already voted on that.
Oh.
Yeah, we
We already
voted on
voted on the
the,
109.
that's why.
It's
that's where
confusing.
Yeah.
No, because
So
I
this
don't
is the-
want, we already
these are the
voted the
additionals.
190, so I didn't want the whole total because it looks
Okay, I
like
get you, I get you.
more.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're on discussion of that.
Now we're on discussion, Bill.
Okay. So can we go back just to the storm water because
No,
I
we're
think
gonna do that as a capital request later.
as a capital request later, okay?
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if Bill wants to discuss whether or not he think it should take place of something else.
That was instead of the trailer and the dinghy dock. That's what I can't remember what the DM regulations, but if she's saying she's gonna take care of it at a later time, then we'll take care of it at a later time.
Well, as long as that gets voted at a later time. I mean, I agree that's a priority also, and if you want to just put the trailer in the dock. You see what I'm saying?
It
Well,
has to replace something.
the trailer costs $8,500. It costs him $1,500 to get it in and out during the course of the year. So that saves $7,000 there. I mean, does he need a trailer at some point? Yeah. That was my only point. And then a dinghy dock. I don't know the purpose of the dinghy dock. It's not, the Harbormaster just said he's not gonna park his boat on the dinghy dock, the waterfront infrastructure, Stone Bridge dock. So that's 10,000.
Right, but my opinion to that is that's for recreation use, and I think that, but it doesn't matter. I can make motions later to put that on the regular capital. If it's the pleasure of the council to replace those 2 items to the other item that Bill's mentioning, then we can do it.
Madam President?
Yes.
So a couple things on that. One is the cost for Tyler for the fall was $1,500. He has another minimum of $350 to put it back in for the spring. And then over the course of the summer, if he has to take it out, each time will cost him $700 in and out, or out and in, I should say.
It does all summer long.
So that really comes out to somewhere between 2,700 and 3,000. Could be more if he had to take it in and out more frequently. The other piece is, we've gotten great life, it sounds like 25 years maybe out of the current trailer. So, it's been put to good use. And then the second piece on the dock, I do think if we are going to help expand opportunities for tax bases in town, we have to make our waterfront as accessible as possible. And the dock really helps do that. Now, do we have a lot of business down there that people might go to? Not necessarily, but we have a few, and it might help us grow others. We have a beautiful waterfront down there right now. We have a couple of more retail focused shops. I think it's called the Salt Shop, the Coastal Roasters right next to it. Across the street, there's the Crystal Shop. There's the Red Dory. Those are the ones there now, but it may help entice other opportunities there as well. And plus, just getting people to go to the beach.
Totally not against it. Not my point. I'm just saying if there's something in regards to the stormwater that impacts us with DEM, that maybe takes priority over those two. That's my only point.
Okay.
Mike said most what I was going to say. This would be a town-owned dock. I think we don't have any. If people want to park their boat off the beach and take a dinghy in, well, they can do it out at Fogland. There's a boat ramp there. It's been brought up before that they almost have to go to Portsmouth or someplace like that to dock their boat or to gain access to the convenience store. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to have it.
And we can put the infrastructure under our capital if everyone agrees that we need to spend for the infrastructure. No, not the infrastructure, the stormwater infrastructure. So Jay, the question is, do you want to continue with your motion? I have your motion in a second.
I'll continue with it unless somebody wants to.
All right, so I'm going to have a vote on this motion, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll decide what else we want to add to our regular capital budget. So I have a motion on the floor in a second. Bill brought up a good point, but now I'm going to have a vote. So Jay.
Yes, and this is a preliminary vote.
Right. Deb.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Donna, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it yes? Okay. And I'm a yes. All right, so we just did that. So now let's look at the rest of the capital, and if anybody wants to add anything else, and this would be to our regular capital budget, and I want to suggest the recycling center at 225,000. Do I have discussion on that?
So that would be to separate the recycling center over 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And meanwhile, we're going to look into the infrastructure accounts. We're going to look at that other little paving account we have for 90,000 and maybe reduce next year to less than 225 if we can subtract the amount.
Denise, the paving account, can that only be used for top coat?
That $90,000? Is that what you're talking about? Nobody knows. That's what Denise said.
Because it was presented to us as top coat, and when a restricted account specifies, then that's pretty much what you got to use it for.
Right.
So if it is for top coat, and we were going to do a base coat, which I think is not the plan at this time to the recycling center, then it would be 2 years in the future or before it would be top coated.
Yeah, but we still have a couple of other streets that need top coating.
Well, yeah, like sales goes in, we're going to have to top coat.
So we can always use that money for that. I'm talking about the other infrastructure account.
Right.
Does anyone have any discussion about the recycling center construction? Does anyone want to make a motion, or I will?
I'll make a motion that we allocate $225,000 for the recycling center construction.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll second.
Seconded it. Any further discussion? Jay?
What?
Do I have a vote?
Are we voting?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay.
Heard
Deb,
discussion.
Yes,
I'm just voting. Deb,
yes,
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Okay, so that'll add, that's our request so far. I would sending to the budget committee is 225, which will be taken out of taxation.
So what's the 225 then?
The 225 is our capital request right now.
I know, what is it specifically?
Recycling center.
Oh, I thought you said 200.
No, 225.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. So,
So we're up to 629,500 capital.
yeah, but we're not taxing the 404.
Right, I understand that.
Okay, okay. Which is, I think, like I said, is very responsible of us to do it this way. Anybody want to add anything else? Oh, yes. Bill, do you want to add your stormwater drainage infrastructure?
Can I get some, if Rick is still on the line, can he remind me of what we spoke about a few weeks ago or whatever in regards to this?
Yes, I'm happy. This is Rick. I'm happy to discuss that. We did lower it because of, again, the financial concerns the town is facing. So we're not going to try to tackle the overall stormwater issues. We put the 15,000 in there for some minor, well, not that minor, but equipment cleaning capabilities and the IT infrastructure to be able to locate the stormwater features in town so that they're on a GIS format. That's what that amount of money was that's what we wanted to get out of that money.
Remind me about the DEM regulations, because I noted that and I don't remember what the specifications were.
Yeah. Yes, everything's been slowed down, I believe, by the coronavirus. But DEM said, this might have been a year ago, that they fully expect that when they redo the regulations, that they will make it mandatory that towns update their methods, unless they already have those methods, of tracking and monitoring and cleaning, et cetera, these stormwater measures that the town has in place, outfalls, ponds, catch basins, et cetera.
And when do you expect those regulations to take effect? Do you expect them to take effect next year or?
I don't know. That's up to DEM, and they're behind Schedule 2, from my understanding, due to different limitations they have. So I don't know if it'll take place. It could take place in fiscal year 22. It could take place after that. And with government, you can't guarantee anything when they're going to redo the regs or what they'll include. We're trying to be proactive to be able to have this system in place. It could certainly be used prior to the regulations mandating them. We're simply trying to be proactive so that it is available when mandatory, but could be used ahead of time anyways.
Okay, so this isn't on your priority list. This is something that could be put off quite possibly till next year.
It could be
Okay.
put off next year. We won't know till DEM comes out with the regulations. And I suspect, but I don't know, that DEM may give municipalities, a certain time frame to, fulfill their obligations.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. I think, Denise, we probably can hold off maybe on it, but I'll go with further discussion. Thank you.
And thank you, Bill.
Mike,
I would like to make a motion to include on the docket and I just lost my spot. The telephone recording system under the TPD request and the server redundancy under the TPD request. The telephone is 7304. The server redundancy is 20,000.
Second.
any discussion? Okay, I'll take a vote.
I just
Donna?
Yeah, we're not buying that right now, are we? Or is,
That'll
It's
be
just
our
to put
next
on the
year's budget.
docket for the FTR. It's to
Oh,
put on the
okay.
docket for the FTR.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else? Jay,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
All right, and while we have Rick, Rick, out of the other things that we haven't included, is the forklift a priority for you this year?
I would say, and again, I didn't even bother inserting items that we didn't have a need for and can use. However, again, to restate for the multiple times, I understand the financial constraints the town has. So at this point, it is a very nice thing to have. It would certainly be used, but we could continue to simply have deliveries made for large items on, Tommy Gate trucks, et cetera, or try to make do with forks that we could put on the front end loader, that kind of thing.
Right. Is there anything that you've requested you want us to reconsider?
I don't know about reconsidering. I thank you all for your, accommodations that you have made. One thing that I would say would be nice, again, so we could tow things, the tag-along trailer. We would not necessarily be able to tow large things, but we could, with retrofitting, put it on one of our larger dump trucks, like a 2011 or 2012 Mack, and tow some items, but we might not be able to tow the dozer. We don't know that yet. So I'd like that to be looked at, but it's not mandatory. Again, we could just keep subbing that out and hiring people, but it would certainly increase the effectiveness and efficiency of DPW to be able to trailer its own equipment.
And it would also save us money on hiring out.
That is correct.
Donna?
I was going to ask the same. How much would we save? How much are we spending right now for the fact that we don't have a tag-along trailer?
If we're going, and by the way, I might sound a little echoey, but the other phone conked out, so I went to another phone, and it's on speakerphone. The right now we spend about $500 to trailer the dozer back and forth, not each way to Milton for the repairs or Milford for the repairs. We spend about $300, $350 locally to because there's a flat fee to trailer the dozer around, for instance, to the cemetery, to the landfill each time.
And how many times is that you use? What is the total on that for the year?
Well, it's less this year because there's always a silver lining to the cloud. Since the dozer's been broken, we haven't had to transport it except when the track fell off at the cemetery. So we've just put all that work on hold. But typically, I don't know, but I would say you're going to be, if you go up for repairs, that's going to be roughly $900, $1,000, and it depends on how many times you go for a repair. And to trailer around here, for instance, to the fire station, to the cemetery, to the landfill, if you do that, say, 3 times a year total, maybe 4 times a year, then you're looking at $2,400. That's just round figures.
Any comment about this item? Can we hold off?
I don't know, to me, it's costing maybe at the most $2,400 a year right now. And it's
Right, and this is a $23,000 item.
Yeah, I think we can hold it off, but that's just my opinion.
Anyone else? I agree with that.
I agree too, because
I
I
do
think
too.
there's some other things here
Yeah,
that,
and I want to bring up something too.
yeah, like there's this tax collector
Yes, and
software.
that we might want to add to capital eventually. Because I have the tax collector on Tuesday night's meeting, and I'll have him go over this with us. So what we're doing right now is not written on in stone. We can take it out or put something back. But it's some kind of a guidance for the budget committee so they know what we're thinking.
Right, I get it.
Because
And
the
like
budget committee needs to know what we're thinking here.
right, like the library, I don't know what that capital request is for.
Right, I have the library on for next Saturday.
So,
we
right,
might
so we
wanna
can
add
talk
on.
about
Yeah.
that.
I've tried to, I know you guys don't see the rest of my agendas, but I'm writing them as we're speaking and putting people on, so.
Okay, and the
She
senior
actually
center?
requested if you could put her on the 20th. She couldn't. So whenever the 20th is,
Who asked for that?
Senior Center.
Yes, I
Catherine.
put them on. It's
Yeah,
on my,
20th is next Saturday, Chris.
Okay.
yeah, I did have that as a tentative for next Saturday. I didn't have to put that written in stone yet for Joan. She still has a couple of days to advertise that. Tuesdays, I have pretty much down right now. I don't know if you guys got a copy of it, but that's pretty much done. All right, so, yeah, the tax collector, Deb, I definitely agree on, but we haven't heard from him yet. And anyone else think of anything else right now?
Well, like the ones that we haven't talked to yet, like the library, the senior center.
Right.
Did we put the playground equipment?
No, we didn't.
Because we said we wanted to lower that.
I don't think we should deal with that right now until we get to Hownell.
Oh, until that's right. We
I
said
think
that.
we're really fixing up one of our playgrounds and maybe next year, see what our needs are and then go to the other playgrounds. But I just think that
So
right now, I think that's what we should do.
The only other two items are the town hall and the DPW building repairs.
Okay, well, Rick's still here. You want to talk about the DPW building repair?
Sure. Is that a question to me, Denise, Rick, or is that to Chris?
No, it's to you, Rick. So the DPW main building repairs?
Yes, that would be for some repairs to the siding, the gutters, the roof, and also that is for safety improvements. For instance, last year we were mandated by DEM and the trust to install and purchase some spill equipment and also some separators for instance, the acetylene torches, the welding tanks, and also spill containment units for oil drums, that kind of thing. So that's why that item is in there.
Okay, and that item is $10,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I think it's important we maintain buildings, because that's been one of the things we've been criticized in the past. So
Justly so.
Do I have any discussion on that right now?
Rick, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Acetylene separators. My understanding is when you are actually using a torch setup, they can be together, but when they're in storage, they need to be separated?
Right. And so the two tanks are together when you're doing the welding.
Right.
But when you move them away from the work area, when you store them at night, or when you're not going to be using them during the day, they're supposed to be separated. And I forget exactly what it is, but 10 or 15. That a long time ago, you simply left the two tanks together. That's the way the tank holders were built. But that regulation has changed.
So this isn't really more involved than just buying a couple of separate dollies, and then you wheel them both into position and hook them up and use them. And then when you're done, you wheel them to their separate storage areas, correct?
Right. You have to reconnect them and all that. And have taken, and we did take care of that. That was just an example. We took care of that already when the trust directed us to do so.
And you already bought a lot of spill kit stuff.
Yes, we did buy some of that also.
Okay.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Does anyone like to make a motion for the DPW building repairs?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
So that will add $10,000 to the 225. Council Edwards,
Yes.
Council Janick,
Yes.
Council Vieira,
Yes.
Council Cook,
Yes.
Council Burke,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So our request right now would be 225 plus that 10. And that would go on the docket.
Plus the 20, plus the
Well,
7,304.
Yeah,
Yes, plus the,
the
what else
20,
is this?
the 20,000.
20 and 7,304.
Okay. So that brings it up to 262. And then, like Deb said, we still have to talk about the couple of other things that are here.
You sent out library and the tax collector, assessor,
Yes,
and then town hall.
yes. So what do you think? We did good, or do you want to talk about town hall, Chris?
I know Rick has some issues with town hall. That was on their plan originally, but there is some office issues we need to deal with here. Ideally, it would be nice to get a conference room back for the council, back where the planning people are. But ideally, putting the building office, zoning office, planning office together would make sense. So they continue to hear and understand what each is doing. It's a, you know, they're somewhat separated. Sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. But I know there are some other things that were on the plan from before. The DPW was going to do some work in this building. I just don't know what all those were. I think some of it had to do with the walkway out front. It was an ADA issue.
Okay, well, that item is 10,000 and it's the same thing. It's keeping up with buildings.
Yep.
So I don't know if you guys want to add that also.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And like I said, we've been criticized for not doing repairs and renovations. So putting this on the docket is a good thing, I think. Council Edwards,
Yes.
Council Janick,
Yes.
Council Burke,
Yes.
Council Vieira,
Yes.
Council Cook,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, so Chris, this is what I want, and you and I can work on this. Send a memo to the budget committee saying what we've done today,
Okay.
the items we've taken out of capital,
Okay.
and what our capital request is as of now, which is not high.
Okay.
And just say that we are going to consider a couple of more requests, and we will update them as necessary.
Okay. And I'll clean up this page so all that other stuff is out of there, like the capital reserve account, the infrastructure park, you know, that fund that's on there. It should be
Yeah, so
on
this
there.
whole sheet will look different. once
will.
Okay,
Hello, Madam President.
yes,
Can we include in that a notation that we will be receiving that 35% back
Yes.
for the cars
Yes.
yes,
in a grant?
yes, and I'd like to get this out to them before their meeting on Thursday, and I'll be at their meeting on Thursday too for any questions.
So do you really have to do that if you're buying those cars, if he can buy those cars this year?
I just think it's good. Oh, well, you're including in there the list of things we're taking out of capital reserve, right?
No, if you're gonna buy them.
Oh, I thought you were. I thought you were. Okay.
The only one that needs to be in there that comes out of capital reserve is the fire truck.
No. Yes, but I want you to write some kind of memo to them.
No, I get that. I'll do that. I'll clearly outline the $404,000 that's being spent.
Yeah.
Right, so Mike is saying that just add about the grant and that.
Yeah, I think it's good for them to see that we're using other funds to support it.
I confused your discussion about the 35% is to cleaning up the docket versus the memo to the.
Oh, okay,
That's where I got confused.
okay.
Denise,
Yeah,
could you screw my head on for me? Where are we at now? DPW building repairs, the server upgrade,
Yep.
the town hall.
yep,
What am I missing?
Telephone.
telephones,
The
The
recycling,
recycling.
Oh, recycling's in there too.
recycling and the telephones.
But not the town farm security system, right?
No, that was coming out of municipal capital. So I'll draft a memo and I'll have you take a look at it.
I know this is.
No, that's
very-
fine. I'm just writing things down and I'm going,
I know this is very complicated, guys, but I think we did really good work today.
did.
And this was something that was really weighing on me that we needed to get this part done. Because as far as the other general accounts, we can vote on that quickly. I believe there's
Yeah.
been a lot of increases there. We're going to talk to but it was really weighing on me that I needed to not have that request be so high and figure out a way to get what we need and do it a more fiscally responsible way. And I think we did it.
Okay.
I agree.
All of us.
well, we certainly made a dent in it.
We definitely did. I think I'm going to end it. We've been here forever. Donna, I love the dog.
Oh,
Is that a
I was-
dog?
I was waving it. I was waving at him, Donna.
he's just had it.
Yeah, mine has too. What's his name?
Harry
Harry, of course. She always names it guy names like that.
was a guy.
The last one was William. All
Yeah.
right. So what I'm going to do is we do have a couple of other things on the agenda, which I'm going to table until Tuesday.
Okay.
I'm kind of happy that the town council, we need to really look at that contingency and what we really need next year. So I think we need to clean that up a little, make sure that we really do definitely have that much money in there. And then we have to look at what contingency we're going to put in there for raises for next year. And that has a lot to do with you, Chris, to figure out what we really need for
Okay.
council contingency next year.
All right.
All right, and then legal services, I'll see if Mike can come on Tuesday night and just, I don't even know if we need him there. We just need to,
So your biggest one is going to be labor because we have some union issues coming up.
right, and we'll discuss that on Tuesday.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time, but I think we really put a dent on what we needed to do.
We did.
I want to thank you all for coming prepared, and we did it, so. All right, so have a nice rest of the weekend. I'll see
You
you all.
guys too.
Motion to
Bye. Motion, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I knew we were gonna do that.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, let's just raise our hands.